Welcome to Dialog Choices Podcast, episode 69. Made you look. I lied to you. It's not that one. No, it's not nice. I just anti-niced you. You've been nega niced. You've been nice bald. What?
What? No.
Oh, jeez.
No. Tell me it isn't. It is freaking. We're not even close to 69.
No,
we're not even close. How did you? I don't know how you.
You believed me.
Of course I did. It's like this is like a reflex thing.
You're so trusting. No, it's the Nintendo episode. We're gonna not talk about Nintendo though.
What?
It's episode 64. I could have planned something like for this, but I'm only just now checking what episode it even is. So there are not any Nintendo related plans to celebrate this incredible milestone of this podcast that won't fucking die. This has to be my longest running podcast ever, huh? There's been so many.
I don't know. It's your podcast.
Yeah, I just keep having podcasts, and then the number restarts periodically for varying reasons, and then we just have another podcast.
What I like is that
probably like episode 200 or something.
You had a podcast that was only for your patrons, except every 5 ones, and you had like a bajillion of those, and then you ran out of questions because people started forgetting what questions were, and then you decided to make another podcast, and I'm glad that you did, about asking people to send questions in to Dialog Choices that they also don't
send it. No, what is it? How to put this? Yeah, I did have like essentially like a 100 episode podcast that's hidden. I was just trying to scroll all the way down to the last episode of Sit and Discuss. Sit and Discuss was only 24 episodes. That was like a relatively short-lived thing. We're already double that here. Look at us go. That was years ago.
You were young. That's why it felt like it was longer.
But yeah, I did like a 100 episode Q&A podcast for Patreon because it was just supposed to be a perk for Patreon basically, but it was just time consuming, and so it wasn't that there weren't questions coming in. It was just the fact that I'm like, this kind of ran its course, right? Do you really need more than 100 episodes of one guy doing a Q&A for Patreon? I was like, I feel like we did enough of this. I feel like maybe at episode 100 or whatever I should just like move on and then use that exact amount of time and effort every weekend to do like a more regular podcast that isn't just me. And in that case, I would in many cases I would look at one question and then I would answer it for like an hour, which is akin to this stuff. But this stuff gets even more weird and off topic because like there's 3 people and it could just and like that one we like get 1/3 of the way into answering a question, and then we go on 17 tangents, and then like I remind us 2 hours in what the question was, then we go back or something. We don't need questions though. We just go with a premise, an accusation, a thesis. And Colonel's thesis that he fucking presented before this episode started was that Deathloop is a game you shouldn't even play for free.
Wow, I did that. I did say that.
I'm coming at you with your own takes.
This is like you're like uncovering my dirty secrets because I gave that in the confidence of the quietness of our Discord call.
Nah, defend thyself, internet cuck.
And I gave it to Andrew, so it was like a friend in need asked me for help, and I said, "No, thine shall not play this bestoof." Hark. And no, actually, I played. I have a love-hate relationship with Deathloop because I wanted to like it and it didn't grab me for reasons that I can get onto in a little bit, but I wanted to like it and I didn't like I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it, and then it crashed. It just wouldn't proceed, and it also didn't record, like it stopped recording for whatever reason, so like I lost footage. Then it's a game that doesn't allow me to go back
That's so frustrating. It's one of the worst things that happens to Let's Players is when you have a game that just like is a single file autosaving forever and there's like a continual narrative to the entire playthrough. And so the only way to like recover footage you lose is to start the entire fucking game over. But sometimes that's not even an option, because like in a game like Demon's Souls or whatever, it's like, okay, well, I guess I could just make a new file and retrace my steps, but faster this time because I know the game better now, and I'll just get to the part where we lost the footage and I'll go like re-record that part, which is what I had to do with Bloodborne. Like 3/4 of the way into the game, I lost footage, and I'm like, guess I gotta make a new fucking file. But games like This War of Mine or like Deathloop are like a bizarre playthrough with like semi-random elements and all these other stuff that you can't like easily recreate the scenario that you were in before the lost footage to then get the lost footage. So you're just like, series ruined, fuck you. Like I had my power went out and I lost my footage way back when I was playing Invisible Ink. And that is, you can't do anything about that. It's just gone.
I go to great lengths to prevent that from being a problem, including having 2 UPS on both of my computers.
Jesus Christ.
And I always have the redundancy of having the stream footage, which actually happened to me in Elden Ring.
It is definitely an incentive to just stream everything you ever do.
Yeah. The problem with Elden Ring for me is that I lost 2 hours of footage, and so like in the middle of the Let's Play, there's like 4 episodes of me actually showing up on camera instead of not, because I don't do that on the Let's Play.
What file type are you recording in?
So I'm recording in MKV, but Keith is not.
Mwah.
Yeah, and
I lost
MKV
footage because MKV will, but I lost footage because the game sort of semi-crashed midway through. And then after that, it was a black screen only. And I was playing normally, and then I noticed, wait a minute, I'm not recording. That's terrible.
Oh, that kind of loss. So like
yeah. Which is what happened to Deathloop. But the problem with Deathloop is this. It's really well made, apart from the crash, even with the crashes and the not recording. Well, like it's a solid game that has good production. The voice acting is impeccable. The writing is interesting. The level design is interesting as well. You can tell that it's a team that made Prey, but
it's not the team that made Prey, though.
Okay, well, It isn't.
Isn't the Dishonored team? And there was like a whole. I feel like we talked about in this podcast that like it was the Dishonored team made Deathloop, and that Prey was made by a different team, which is why it's so fucking weird to play Deathloop. Which, spoilers, it's my next playthrough. I'm relatively deep into it right now. It's like a step back from Mooncrash, but it's not by the team that worked on Mooncrash. So, like, it's 2 different competing companies that basically aren't the same company, as far as I can tell. Otherwise, they would have iterated on Mooncrash instead of, like, essentially not learning what they learned while making Mooncrash and making like almost like a prototype for Mooncrash that would eventually, like, if these games I would believe you if you told me these games came out in the other order and that this Deathloop came out first and then Mooncrash was them like perfecting it later. But instead, the weird little DLC for Prey is a better version of this idea than the full game that's named after the idea. And video games are weird. Video games are so weird.
So I'm looking at the names here, or I'm trying to find the info, and you are right. Deathloop was made by Arcane Lyon, which is the French studio of Arcane, and Dishonored 2 was also developed by them, and Dishonored 1 was before they had multiple studios. But Prey, as far as I can tell, Prey was done by Arcane Austin. Which is Prey is one of my favorite games of all time. I didn't like Mooncrash at all. I have so many problems with Mooncrash, but some of them might be just the way I played. I think it didn't account for my play style, and it didn't gel with it, and I didn't like it at all. I finished it, but Prey is amazing. It was amazing, and so much so that I think the level design of Deathloop is kind of up there with Prey. But the problem is Deathloop. The systems the game has, like the interface and the upgrade paths of your weapons and the reason why you want upgrade paths and the builds and the skills and the reason why you do things over and over again, it's just not there. It's like they designed a storyline in a game that would be totally fine with just finding weapons and using them, or finding keys or whatever and using them for puzzles and whatnot. But then they decided to add a roguelike uh system on top of it, and it doesn't work. There's no incentive to really care, and it's not satisfying either. To use specifically the weapon upgrade interface and the managing the inventory is just so clunky. Like, it's polished and it looks nice.
Horrible. It's also like the game is full of very obviously made for controller controls, and we both played it on PC. Yeah. Like, one of the most glaring ones is the fact that every time you use a combination lock, you have to like, it brings up like a circular screen for controlling what number you like are inputting on the code, and it's controlling with the mouse is confusing. You like you never quite, you just kind of like start spinning your mouse like you're trying to like pretend it's a joystick, because you're like, what? How do I quickly get it to the 6? It's on the other side of where it starts. Like, how do I quickly swoop it around this weird circle? Because I don't have it. It's like, if all they had to do was give me a keypad to click on, and I just click the numbers I want. But it's a fucking right joystick interface element, and I'm like, I don't have a joystick. What are you doing to me? I had the quest log that's made for like it's clearly made for left stick, left trigger, right trigger, where left and right trigger zoom in and out, and left and right stick are like, one of them moves one scrolls the screen, and then one moves your cursor around, and then you like click on the objectives you want on this big like note board. But on PC, it's like right click to drag in your basic interface for looking at quests. Like, that's like a bizarre thing to have to put in any video game, is right click to drag that isn't like a strategy game or some strange thing. It's like one step away from like how you move stuff around in like freaking like Unity or something. Like, it's a bizarre way to surface controls in the game. But at one point it just broke. At one point my game just stopped letting me drag my interface around, so I had to turn on my controller, and so I got a sample of what it feels like to use the controller in that menu, and suddenly it made way more sense. But it was the only way I could get out of that screen, because I couldn't navigate to the objective I was trying to look at, because it just stopped accepting right-click drag at all. And I'm like, this is an incredibly strange thing. But like, the synthesis, the weird infusion mechanic is like, you go to every so you're already like, this is a first person shooter PC game. So default position of hands, right hand is on the control on the mouse, and left hand is on WASD. Obvious. Like, at no point when you're playing Overwatch in general, like, do they expect you to move your left hand. They understand where it is, and they base their controls around where the left hand is. And I thought we all understood this about PC games and shooters and so on. But then, like, this game is like, nah, every single time you want to infuse something, you gotta hold down enter for 3 seconds for some reason. And I'm like, why hold it down? Like, why? Yeah. Every press to hold command on PC, you're like, oh, this is a controller thing, and they just didn't bother changing it. But strangest of all, when you want to sell stuff, it would turn it into the infusion powder shit. You hold delete on something, and then you press delete once on everything else you want to delete. So you only have to hold it the first time. But the whole point of holding something is to confirm it, to give you that little bit of resistance so you don't do it on accident or whatever. But they make you hold to confirm deleting the first thing, but it's not actually deleting it, it's just selecting it. And then you tap delete on all the other ones you want to get rid of, which, by the way, we're talking about the delete key on the keyboard, like, incredibly far from where your hand is playing a shooter. Why would they do that? But then after you press the delete button on all the things you want to get rid of, you then hold the space bar to actually confirm it. Which is what? And in no other menu in the entire game is spacebar confirm. In fact, any other menu, if you press spacebar, it takes you to your loadout screen. So like, the buttons do different things on every menu, and it's just very strange. They took like the game. It took me a while to realize that this game lets you hold 3 guns and a machete and they are just mapped to 1, 2, 3, 4, like in Counter-Strike or any other shooter that has a bunch of guns, because the interface only shows you a couple of them at a time, like you're going to cycle through them with your bumpers or something, and it does not, and it only tells you which one's next, like they're Tetris pieces, when they could just show you the guns you have or just depict them normally. So it feels like this weird chain of hotkeys that is like very strange to read on your interface, when it's like it made it somehow more confusing, despite the fact that it's just how every shooter has its controls laid out for you. You just like, you can just memorize what number is which gun and move on with your life. But they managed to show it so strange that I couldn't tell what they meant for a while. That's rough. It's a strange game.
I can see why you would miss that, but that's rough. It's especially because the game does reward you for weapon management, because you can't carry too many bullets.
Nope.
And for me, it feels like it's a game of two hearts, a little bit like Moon Crash felt like, but not quite in the same way. It feels like they wanted to tell a cool story of all these wacky characters and have you find out about them by spying on them or reading their journals or finding out their, like, piecing things together, which is cool. It's really fun. That's how Prey works. Although Prey works like that, but in a different level. It's like almost optional for you to do that, and it rewards you so much when you start to doing that it's just like I thought that was genius. But in Deathloop, the game requires you to piece the things together, and because it's all tied to a quest journal, it basically, all you have to do is just click the next thing. You don't actually need to think to find out the storyline. You just need, okay, let's do this one next, and the game shows you whatever the game wants to tell you. But the problem with that is that it loses any sense of pacing, because you can just skip to any, like, you can as soon as you start having access to just waiting and having different time zones and different starting the game in different areas and different times a day, as soon as that happens, you can break the pacing of the game, and it happens like an hour into the game, or an hour and a half maybe. And
or
what happens
4 hours into the game if you're me.
Oh,
This game has an astonishingly handholdy but also bizarrely paced and just strange tutorial, where they just like hard lock you into not being able to play the game as it's intended to play
for a while,
for hours, but also not like, it's not like the game is like, fucking hurry up and just rush through this part as fast as possible. We want to show you where the game gets good. It's like, it just goes on for so long that you end up visiting like every zone of the game and going through an entire loop. And it also is like, like, go ahead and explore if you want. And it's like, no, don't tell me to explore. This is a part of the game where I can't actually get anything done, and I'll lose everything at the end of the loop. Don't tell me to explore now, game. That's a horrible idea.
I don't remember if I got lucky that somebody told me or I noticed, but basically, as you're saying, the tutorial is weirdly paced, because the tutorial is basically, it gives you access to you can do a loop and you can just explore a little, but it's railroaded and you don't get anything out of it. So what you need to do is you just follow the quest markers as fast as possible. Don't explore anything, because it doesn't matter. And it's much better if you explore it later. So the game, as you say, it tells you to. You can explore now. I don't know if somebody must have told me in chat, and I was like, okay, I'll just ignore everything now. And that's why it took me an hour.
Pro tip for anyone that hasn't played Deathloop yet: just sprint through it, not thinking, chasing objectives, and don't do anything else for like an hour or two.
That's the best part of the game, by the way.
Like, just blitz through that part of the game as fast as possible, because any attempts to engage, it's almost as bad as like finding out the hard way about like Monster Hunter having a low rank and a high rank. You're like, you mean all the gear I've gotten so far was pointless? I farmed for hours yesterday. But like in Deathloop, it's like you literally just lose everything because of how the loops work, and you literally have to like finish this looping process and get through the tutorial until you finally get your first real objective, which is to unlock the ability to keep stuff. And then that's when suddenly it's like, oh, there's like a level select and I can do things. Up until then, every time you get into this menu that happens between missions, which by between missions, I mean like the loop is broken up into 4 times a day, And every
You
time
don't even know what the loop is at the beginning.
No, you don't really understand like the pace of the game yet.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, every time you leave a location, it advances time to the next of 4 time periods that happen over the course of one day, and that day repeats. Every time it repeats, you lose everything. It forces you into this weird menu where they want you to like look at all your loot. It spends an entire screen celebrating all the stuff you picked up, which is very fucking. It gives you like 5 screens to skip through every time you finish even the most minor task.
Skip
It's
it
like
all. Yeah.
it's very obnoxiously like I just finished a match of like Halo Infinite or Overwatch, and it's like here's a bunch of annoying pop-ups that try to make me feel good about all the stuff I got, but it's just noise.
And it's all worthless.
You got a blue gun and a purple gun and 700 upgrade nodes that you now have to read. I'm like, oh fuck, oh no.
So clunky.
But yeah, at the beginning, every time you go to this menu, I was like not even learning how it works, because what they do is they force you to just click what they want you to click over and over again. Like they literally black out the screen and put a little box around the one thing you're allowed to click on, and they make you do that for like the first like 2 hours of the game. Like that's the only way to engage with this whole mechanic, is you just like click here now. This does this thing. No, now click here. It's like having an overbearing person teaching you how to play their favorite game, and they won't just shut up and let you just play the game. But it's like the developers just physically shackling you, and it's like
mobile games.
It's like the antithesis in many ways of like the idea of making an immersive sim. Like
exactly,
go learn and do what you want to do. And it's like this game's like terrified I won't get it, and I'm like, of course I get it. I already played a better version of this 4 years ago by a company called the same company as you. And that one, as far as I can remember, did not do this kind of like I know it explained itself, but I don't think it did it this poorly for this long.
Well, there were things that it didn't explain very well at all. Moon Crash, for example, I'd never engaged at all with the mule that carries your loot. You can in a Prey Moon Crash, you can have a robot that carries loot through the loops, which is really handy. I never did that because I don't
remember if I did or not.
There's a bunch of powers that just are never explained. And quest objectives are also, some of them are like obtuse and you have no idea what they mean until you stumble onto them by suffering. At least that was my experience.
A decent amount of Prey was about carefully exploring this entire level to figure out like what is happening on that place and so on, because it is an investigation game. And then you're like, oh, and then you eventually piece together your 5 big ways of surviving the apocalypse and so on. But this one is just like, it's not. There's like a really key difference between these, is that like Deathloop's not exploration focused, despite also being an investigation game about figuring out what's going on in a time loop. And like this is inherently like the genre. Like you make your big time loop mystery thing. You have a character that doesn't know what's happening or what happened or something, and they have to investigate what's going on, and they have to piece together the clues and figure out what's going on. I have a whole playlist that's just part 1s of games that are this, because of how many times I've played games that are in this style. And like this one just doesn't really do it. It does the same thing that I didn't like about Forgotten City. Because Forgotten City is originally a Skyrim mod, and you can tell, because one of the most damning things it does is it just turns all of these objectives into a quest log that are just about going to the next guy and talking to them most of the time, and then he just tells you who the next guy is to talk to. And so a significant percentage of the mystery of that game is just like walking around the environment and exhausting everyone's dialogue. There was a bit more to it in that game than in this game. Like Forgotten City you still had to like observe the entire environment, find everybody wherever the hell they were and so on, and like do some self-driven exploration. Whereas Deathloop is almost entirely, you start off with a quest marker, which splits into like 8 quest markers that you pick from manually. And then just every time you're in a location, you just go hunt down the quest marker. And so you just go to the thing, and then you go click on the thing. And most of the time, when you get to most of the time you get to the thing, it's like, shit, you don't know the password. You gotta get the password now. And now you just have a new quest marker to get the password. So it's just chasing quest markers as usual, but with the slight added complexity, but it's not so much complexity as it is like busy work of that you need to leave the zone every time you do any objective and then come back at the correct time or place to do the next part of the objective. So that it's
that
like
feels
normal. Yeah, it's like normal quest marker chasing with added backtracking and loading screens, because you load into the same. There's 4 maps and you load in at the same point every time, and that also means that every time you finish what you're doing, you have to run back to that point to leave. And so there's a lot of the overall game is running in to the waypoint, reading the note that says, you need to go get a password now. Then you run all the way back to where you started, skip all the credits about all the dumb guns you picked up or whatever that don't matter, and then go to your quest log to find out the place and time that you need to do for the next objective. And then you can either just skip to that time and then go to that place without doing any other thinking, or you can like kind of role play the Deathloop willingly and be like, oh well, that's at nightfall, but it's the afternoon now, so what can I do now in the afternoon to further my other goals? But like, there's no actual reason to do that. It's just like makes you feel like you're using your time efficiently and being cool. If you're like, oh well, I'm gonna make all this stuff happen this loop, but like, you can loop as much as you want. It doesn't really matter. And there's no reason not to just skip ahead to the exact time, even if it's like even if you were just at noon and the next objective is in the morning and you have to literally skip past the afternoon and night and then reset the loop back to the morning and lose all your stuff. You can just do that. You just click it 3 times, now it's the morning, and then you can go get the thing.
In fact, if you do that, if you skip and just, go for where you want and just get to the point, it's probably much better. I didn't do that, and for me, the sense of pacing was totally out the window because I was basically shifting
because you're juggling like
characters.
Unconnected stories.
Yeah, and I couldn't keep everything in mind because there's just so much information being thrown at you. Because
it's a lot of characters to keep track of too, given that you almost never meet them.
And there's secrets as well, like because there's things going on that you don't understand at first, and then that's what that guy was doing there, and then you start to piece things together. And obviously, the game eventually leads you to there, but you can piece them together ahead of time by just paying attention, which is pretty cool as an idea. But you can't keep track of it unless you're really smart. I couldn't keep track of all of it. If you're doing what you're saying, like role playing the loop. And just being like, okay, what can I do now this afternoon? What can I do this night? And then tomorrow I'll do,
Also, I haven't finished it either, but I just can't tell. I sometimes can't tell what the game's going for or what its point is, because it is just kind of mindlessly chasing objectives, and so it's hard to say why those objectives exist sometimes. Like, there's the guy with the wolf mask, Alexis. I've killed him several times. It's easy. But my objective for a long time was to figure out how to tell him apart from all the other wolf masks. And I'm like, I killed him already. I've killed him like 3 times because we keep looping. Do I really need to know which one he is? The game says you killed Alexis when the right guy dies. That's it. And then at some point my objective changed from find out which one is the mask to you found a way to lure out Alexis. And I'm like, oh, I'm not 1000% sure how exactly that note meant that I can lure out Alexis now. But once again, I lure out Alexis by firing a gun and then shooting everybody that comes after me when they hear the gun. And then Alexis is one of them, and it's like, you killed Alexis. It's not that deep. Like, I haven't finished this quest chain yet, but I don't know why it's a quest chain because I've already beaten him. Maybe you lure him somewhere else eventually, but it does not sound like that. It does sound like I'm going to kill Alexis ultimately in that location. Because ultimately what the Deathloop is that there's too many characters in too many locations. They're often only accessible at one time of day in one location. And so that makes it so there's functionally 16 levels, at least, that those characters could be hiding in. And so you need
to try... There's some levels that are locked at certain parts of the day, unless the story changes.
So what happens is that, like, every you can only access each enemy at a certain place in a certain time, and you can only play 4 levels per loop. So you essentially are trying to figure out what triggers you have to do in a loop to make those characters change locations or go to some other thing and be somewhere else, so that you can essentially kill off multiple enemies in the same place at the same time, so that you can actually get everyone in one loop. Like, that's the premise of the game, more or less. But
unlike a Hitman type scenario or any other kind of like immersive sim related thing, you don't think in this process, and you don't like innovate or improvise or experiment or like create the scenario yourself. You just find the right document that explains what you have to do, and then you do that one thing, and that's how
that's
like as far as I can tell, at the end of this game, the final run is going to just be do all the things you learned you have to do in one run, and this is the one way to do it, and that's it. It's not like Prey Moon Crash where it's like here's a bunch of weird exits, and some of them are differently compatible with other characters, and some of them involve like doing a thing in an earlier loop with this character's power that enables the ability to open this thing later, and then you can choose which character you want to escape that way now that you've opened it up with the other character. Like there was like Prey Moon Crash was genuinely this big complicated puzzle box with multiple solutions and endings and so on that you genuinely solved your way through. But as far as I can tell, this game is literally like there's one way to do the successful loop, and you're just like chipping away at the marble block until you see what the answer is, and then you're like, okay, that's how the final run goes. That's like, as far as I can tell, that's basically it. And the road up to that is just a lot of hunting down passwords by chasing waypoints over and over and over and over again. And it's just like you get really, it's like when you play like Deus Ex Human Revolution or something, to use just an example. It's not even like an amazing example, but like that game has like levels for its missions, and you start here, and here's the big place full of computers and vents and enemies and stealth and cameras, and like your goal is to find a path through the level, and so you're paying close attention to the level and what's going on in it and so on, and you need to find like the correct way through. Like that's kind of like one of the ideals of how to do this kind of thing, and there's been versions of that in like the Dishonored games and so on. But in Deathloop, it's mostly just a big island that's kind of just a big rocky open area with a series of smaller buildings here and there throughout it. I can't believe I think I'm about to compare it to fucking Elden Ring basically, but it's like it's not an open world game, but it has that open design to the levels where you just kind of run around. And so as a result, every time you go to one of these locations just to like backtrack and quickly do a thing, like I especially after like the third time of being in the same place, I'm just like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. And I just run through the zone. Like, the enemies don't exist. Like, I'm not engaging with this level. I'm just running through this zone like it's a Borderlands area and it's in my way. It's like, this is not how I want to play like a game like Prey or whatever. This makes me sad.
Yeah, but the problem is the game actually layers gameplay mechanics on top of the what you're saying, the finding the quest objective or the password and all that. It layers the experience getting with the sucking that I forget the name of, with a delete. Is it with the delete key or the hold enter key? Yeah. It layers the experience that you get from killing people. You get like upgrades, you get special weapons that then you can convert into experience. There's a bunch of mechanics that reward you for exploring and killing people, or it's basically killing people. Not to mention the fact that there's like map wide and like game wide puzzles that can only be solved if you pay attention to like little details here and there. So the game actually actively wants you to explore everything, and it does it not in a way that like you explore it everything once and you're done. No, you explore everything once. There's a bunch of locked doors that you don't have the password for. There's like the areas that have actual puzzles that ask you questions. There's like this one box that asks you questions that you basically need to read newspaper clips all around the map to know the answers. And like that, those are cool ideas, but they work really well in a linear game. In a game that you're forced to repeat the same levels over and over again, what ends up happening is that you're either going to have a terrible time by killing the same dumb enemies over and over again, and just you're going to have a boring time, or you're going to do as Keith does, which is just skip everything. Which honestly, I think that is the best thing to do.
I look at the world before, and in like linear, not doesn't have to be fully linear, but it comes to like the Elden Ring versus Dark Souls level design discussion that we keep having, which is just like the level can have multiple paths or some other shit, but it's just like having a denser area with more walls and more restrictions leads to like a focused area that goes places, and you can also like mentally keep track of like where you're going and where you haven't been. Like when you go through a big when you're going through like a Resident Evil location, you start developing a mental map and checklist of all of the different places that are locked and not locked and where you can go and so on. But in an open field with like some cliffs and some beaches and shit, like it's so nebulous and vague as a space that like I don't have the same like completionist like tracking of what the environment is like and where I have been, because it's so like vast and like you can't like track it as a series of rooms that are like compartmentalized and understandable. So when the game hits me with like this idea that there's a bunch of weird like gifts that are around a map and they're all gonna explode on a timer unless I find them all, and so you have to keep playing this level over and over again and just explore until you can figure out where all of them are, and I'm like, I'm never doing that. I'm never doing that. This objective seems stupid. Like, why would I'm just gonna blindly come across these random gifts across the map at random because I'm just combing every single piece of the beach for hours? I'm like, no. And there's no way the reward's worth it because like
no, it is.
I can literally just like I could just play with the starting gun and beat the whole game pretty easily. Like. There aren't actually upgrades that are especially important to being able to navigate how the game works. Like the number one thing is I just want the ability to blink like in Dishonored. Once I get that ability, I basically don't need anything else in the game.
That's very
in fact,
true.
the starting gun is so good at headshotting that you don't even need other guns.
That's very true. I mean, the upgrades
I
are
can
cool.
snipe people. It's absurd.
The upgrades are cool. I know that because I did the boring thing. But the problem with the boring, there's another issue with the boring thing is that because the interface is so obtuse and horrible.
What ends up happening? Sucks.
What ends up happening is that you're just like, because there's 3 tiers of upgrades.
And you have to like sit there and like triple check how the entire interface works because it's so cluttered with confusing stuff and repeating iconography, and it also doesn't sort.
Nope.
So you can have like 4 of the same upgrade at the same level.
Function.
It should just be sorted.
Yeah.
You look at your list of upgrades that you've picked up, and it'd be like you eventually realize you have 4 of the same thing that are at the same level because the game's so cluttered with repetitive shit because it has the control system. The fucking loot from Control. The worst loot ever.
That's the problem with the sorting though, is that what ends up happening after 2 or 3 runs is that you realize, this is a game about collecting every 3rd tier of every single upgrade so that I can have them. It's not even about using them. It's just because you already chose the leap one that you got, and you're fine with it.
You immediately pick your favorite guns, your favorite upgrades for those guns, and your favorite powers, and then you spend the infusion points to keep them forever. And then the game keeps hitting you with more loot forever, and like. If you're a weirdo that just likes to complete stuff for no reason, even though it has no tangible purpose, then like you can go through and you can collect all 8 slab powers and then farm the people that you defeat to get the slab powers until you have all 4 upgrades, because every time you get the same slab power again, you get an upgrade for that slab power, which you then have to also separately pay to keep every time. And like
it doesn't
you can just play this game for dozens of hours, pointlessly layering on more stuff that you don't need because the game is just very doable already, and you probably picked your favorite stuff first and like at the beginning of the game. I don't get it. I don't understand this game.
At the time when you said that you should skip, go to the objectives in the tutorial area and skip everything. That at the beginning of the game, when you're going through the tutorial and the game is telling you explore, and you're no, and go directly to the objective. That is the best the game has. That's the best part of the game is the beginning, and because it's the most linear for one, it has the most. It's like fresh when you're finding out about these characters and you're seeing how they interact with each other, and you're seeing this wacky world for the first time. Like there's a lot of cool stuff in that game. There's a lot of little details and little seriously, the writing is really, it's good. There's a lot of cool stuff, but it's hidden behind this layer of repetitive, boring nonsense and the fighting that doesn't need to be there to begin with. And sometimes it actually detracts from enjoying the story. Like there's this one character where if you're not really, really sneaky, you cannot listen to what he's saying. And he's hilarious and saying all this weird things. But if you're not sneaky, people are going to shoot you while that character is talking. So it's infuriating.
Yeah.
But
Is it
I
the
promise you, the beginning
invisibility
of the game
guy?
is the invisibility guy. No, I was thinking about the computer, the brain computer.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear anything he ever said because
Yeah, he's hilarious.
the entire island was shooting at the same time and fighting and so
Yes.
on. And like
Yes.
you can be in the middle of reading lore and it's like Juliana has invaded you and now a human player is
Oh.
trying to kill you while you're trying to read a computer dialogue for your fucking let's play and you're like, cool, I love this stressor.
I forgot about the
the
invasions.
game has always online random invasions where another player just tries to come into your game and murder you, and the game can never be paused as a result of that one mechanic. And that's such a weird thing to do in a game, in a franchise, like not a franchise, but like a subgenre, and like in like this developer style and so on, where so much of the game is reading emails and documents and looking at environmental stuff and like, oh, I found a crumpled up piece of paper and it's got its password on it, and like listening to audio logs, but a fucking human player could just come in and murder you in the middle of all that, and it's even Dark Souls invasion rules where all the enemies are on their team. It's such a dick move. It's so strange. So many people turn off immediately, I'm sure, but I'm like, let's see what the game's supposed to be played like, the intended experience. And it's so weird because sometimes Juliana is brain dead and useless and hilariously inept at the game, like they're me, and other times they're unkillable and I don't know what went wrong, and plenty of times they just never materialize and I don't know where they are. Like, just
I've
no
seen that
idea.
happen as well.
I've had a number of times where I have no idea where Juliana is, and I don't think she's coming. I don't know if she's AFK.
Well.
I don't know if she doesn't know how to find me or something. At one point, I was in the radio hosts building, and I had hacked every single device in the entire building to be on my team. So when Juliana invaded, I was like, come and get it. I'm just going to casually continue reading all these notes, and I can't wait for you to arrive and see the nightmare that this is, because I'm going to fucking run from room to room when we're fighting, and every single room has more guns that are on my team. But she never arrived. I was just sad.
Yeah, it happened to me. I was super confused. It was like, wait, where is she sneaking? Or he's because I'm pretty sure that some invasions are just the computer, and sometimes it might be Juliana, and that those feel interesting or would feel interesting if Juliana actually had a decent AI, but she just stands in front of you and you shotgun her to death. But other times just the players, and the players have perks, they have special weapons, they have abilities that make certain enemies that tell on you. Actually, the enemies just tell on you. But it can be fun, but the skill level is so wildly different based on not on your shooting capabilities, but on your map knowledge and your abilities that you have. So you can just having your swell time and being a super good shooter. Player comes in with all the abilities, you're toast. That's it. Yeah, it feels terrible.
It's also like deeply stressful when you're like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna stealth through this level, and then Juliana invades. And you're like, well. She can literally just sweep through this area at normal speed without having to worry about any of the traps or enemies because they're on her team, and then just find me in the middle of this mess. And then I can be just knee deep in this facility, and then she's shooting at me, and then now the entire facility just like wakes up, and now I'm being attacked by like 40 enemies at the same time and a human that did all this to me, and I'm like, I don't feel good about this problem. This is not a good time. Also, guess what? I was expecting a famously... So I went into this with a narrative of having heard the discourse a bit about people yelling about the game having dumb AI that's dumb and bad and so unresponsive or whatever the hell. And I specifically heard people defend... I don't remember if it was the developer of the game or if it was the guy working on Duskwood or Gloomwood or someone. But I specifically saw someone defending on Twitter the idea like, well, of course the AI is dumb. You would never want to play a game in this genre where the AI is smart, because then it's like unplayable to actually have all these people behaving like intelligently and so on. This like swarm of enemies and whatnot. They buffed the AI.
Oh, they did?
I am playing a different game than everybody who reviewed the game and so on and so forth, and I don't like it. I want the dumb AI patch back, please.
because they are so perceptive and so aggressive, and it feels genuinely both game and genre breaking. Like, it's exhausting. Like, the meter fills up almost immediately, and like people almost instantly enter into like a yellow state, and then you hear the and then like 40 fucking yellow state icons are above all the different NPCs in the entire zone all of a sudden, and they're all coming for you, and like they just fucking they go like it's like too realistic. Like everyone in the entire facility, because one guy has a you literally just like hop between two boxes real quick while crouching, like in a stealth game, in the way that normally works in stealth games, and somebody's instantly like, is that Colt? And they're immediately in yellow state, and immediately everybody around them across the entire level also is simultaneously like, oh my god, Colt's here, we killed you though, Colt's here, how could Colt be here? You hear so many fucking voice lines as the entire hive is awoken, and then everybody is patrolling and searching, and they go. Like a death trap is that courtyard at the wolf party, and like it's so hard to get in the front gate and get anywhere in the facility without being detected, and you have to, in order to complete the objective, you at one point you have to infiltrate that place without getting caught at all. But it's such an open sight line simultaneously from every direction, and if one person catches even a whiff of you, then simultaneously everyone is all erupted and all searching. And so you have an entire base full of yellow state caution people that are all like really actively fanning out and combing through the area and so on. And like there's no Metal Gear Solid like timer caution thing to use. So like I physically leave back through the front gate, go somewhere else, hang out with my turrets in some hallway somewhere, and just wait for them to calm down. I talk to my audience for like a couple minutes, and like I come back, nothing has changed. They're all still yellow state. They're all still searching forever. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? How do you play? Like, I have played so many stealth games that there's just like I've never been good at them, but I know like the rhythm they have and like the reasonableness of like how the AI should generally work in these games to not be like a dick, basically. But no, it's like they just seem to search almost forever, essentially. And like the moment a single one of them gets a red icon, they're going to fire their gun, and then immediately it's like Alexis will be on the intercom talking about, meat's on the menu, boys, and then fucking objective failed, and then my waypoint is now to go back to the exit and loop all the way back around, and I have to skip all the way to nighttime of the same location. Like, it's once per loop, this opportunity, and I have to loop all the way back around, and I'm like, I have seriously failed the same objective like 5 times, and you can only try it once per loop, and it's like, I feel like I don't know how to play stealth games, like fundamentally, because like I cannot get into this place. It won't let me in. And at this point, I'm like, I gotta go like do a whole loop where I just farm the invisibility power to get anything done, I think, because without being able to turn literally invisible, stealth feels borderline impossible with the new patch. Like, yeah, I don't know. I've played stealth games before, I swear. I almost always, at some point in a Dishonored mission or whatever, like, things go loud because I fuck up. But, like, I can, like, you know, infiltrate for, like, a while and not have it all be going to shit and have some idea of, like, oh, yeah, this is what a stealth game plays like. And, like, that is just not happening in this game at all. I can't... I get it. And bizarrely, they're like, "Here's the nail gun. I can use this for silent takedowns." Wink, wink. I'm gonna basically just say this to the camera. Yeah, the fucking silenced takedown gun doesn't do silence takedowns. And then you're like, okay, well, I can do stealth takedowns. Is that how I take people out? No, that alerts everybody too. Like, okay, so maybe they mean I need to use the machete specifically. Like, don't do a melee silent. Don't do a melee press F takedown, but do a machete press F takedown. It's like, that seems slightly more effective, but still wildly inconsistent. So if I find that if I try to infiltrate any place, if I try to take out like 3 people, that's usually like the fuck you sweet spot where like my luck runs out and I get spotted trying to take somebody down. But like, you can't see where all the enemies are. You don't have a clear idea of what they do and don't detect. And one mistake alerts the entire base seemingly indefinitely.
and it's just this huge mess immediately in a way that like this is not Metal Gear Solid 5. This is not Dishonored. This is not like any of the other like games I've played in this genre where I had a feel for how things were supposed to work. It feels just undoable. And these bases are dense with enemies. Like there are like 50 enemies per building. Like it is an insane number of dudes. And you know, because the moment you go loud, all of them know exactly where you are and they're all running straight at you, which comically leads to situations where I just stand in their doorway and I headshot everybody until everyone in the entire facility is dead. So like the game is hilariously easy to just go loud in, but then it gives you objectives where you do need to stay stealthed, and that really makes you just really have to deal with how hard it is to actually stealth in this game. And it's like, like it's taking me back to Alpha Protocol, where like if you don't know to go into Alpha Protocol with the very specific stealth set that makes you completely silent, the largely invisible noise system of that game makes stealth literally impossible. Because in Alpha Protocol, like it is a trip to try to stealth in that game when you don't have the equipment to do so yet at the beginning of the game. Because like you crouch and you're like, okay, I've played games like this. I have an idea of how this game's supposed to play. But you take like one step, and then now, without even telling you, anonymously across the entire level, somebody's running at you that you don't even know is running at you, because the game hasn't even like, there hasn't even been like a, what was that? Or like any kind of like alarm system or like an exclamation point thing like for Metal Gear Solid, or any of the many systems that games have used to indicate that someone has detected you, or like the infamous like arrow over somebody's head that's a white meter that fills up as they're beginning to detect you, and then when it fills up, that's when they detect you. Like none of those signifiers, just silently somebody is randomly now running at you across the map, and they will shoot you when they get to you. And then like also they'll chain aggro like anybody else they come across, and like they did it like through a wall, around a corner, in a concrete bunker, but you were within the noise radius, and they instantly know what a single jingle jangle sound means, and that it's an invading spy in that exact parking lot. I have superhuman hearing, and they just come sprinting at you like regularly. Regularly Deathloop does that now. Like
that is broken.
It's insane. Like I was in the cultist like hangar, and I was literally like I had snuck into her room, and I was just reading her emails, standing completely still. And periodically, people would almost catch me through the walls while I'm not moving, and they can't see me. And I'm not, like, they would just be like, "Whoa, what's that? Is Colt there?
I can hear him reading."
Yeah, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening in this game? I'm not playing on hard or anything. Like, this game feels genuinely broken.
Those computers use CRT monitors. Do you know that CRT monitors sound different based on what they're showing? They can tell.
They can tell. They can hear through the walls. Like
they can hear the screen being like, wait, that's too much widescreen. He's reading emails. This is not the time where she reads emails. This must be Colt.
So much. The writing is kind of fun though. Like I don't hate the writing. Like I appreciate
I love it.
that everyone on the entire island hates Alexis so much. And every conversation is just people being infuriated that they have to interact with this guy over and over again. Like that's so much of the emails. It's just very
it's fun. It's
stupid.
Really it's such a shame that that level of writing is buried. It's buried. In the freaking it's difficult to
weird,
get to.
Messy, non-linear, hard to follow narrative, and it's like, and like
this
like a lot of it's hidden on little crumpled notes that are hard to find, and you're incentivized not to actively track down or read because of the game always being in real time. You can always be hunted, and people are endlessly almost detecting you, and so on, and just like a weird like so many contrary design choices. But like the biggest thing that bothers me is that I can't help but compare this game to BioShock. In some ways, it has almost all the same systems as BioShock, with like the powers and the stealth systems and the splicers versus boss fight people and so on. But and also, everyone's got a mask and they're crazy. It's like a lot like BioShock in those ways. But like every level of BioShock had the dude, and so you would walk into a level,
and there was the guy that is that level's boss, and all of the audio logs are all about that dude or people around that dude, and they're building up the character carefully with pacing and texture and so on, and you get little hints and interactions with them, and you probably get FaceTime via the tried and true immersive sim and or Dead Space system of there's an impenetrable glass window and something happens behind it. And so it's a way of showing something to a first person player and letting them see it without then letting them interact or kill the guy or so on. It's like it's a very goofy trope when you pay attention to it, but it's also like how you show things happening. There's nothing more dangerous than being in Dead Space and you're an NPC that's on the other side of a piece of glass from Isaac. Like, oh no, he's gonna die. And then like I would call it out mid playthrough. But like when you're dealing with like Sandra Cohen or any of these other people in BioShock, like you build up one character carefully and you get an idea of what they look like and what their whole shtick is and what their obsession is and how people react to that character and how they affected people via the audio logs and so on. But like this game just simultaneously dumps you on 8 characters that you experience non-linearly through a big crazy complex. And so like one, their personalities have to be as loud as possible so you can even tell which ones are which. But it's also just like you kind of don't get a super coherent version of a view of each idea of each character because there is no like carefully scripted and cultivated like intro to each one, and you never get FaceTime with any of them. Like you never interact with these characters. Yeah, like you never like talk to these characters or get to see them interact that much with a lot of other characters in a lot of examples. You kind of just storm into a place where you kill them. So it's like you have the gunfight itself for the most part, but not a lot of like chance to like see them doing stuff. And I wonder if this is just and I wonder if part of this is the stealth mess. Like when I got to the radio guy, he was in like he was like in a recording booth with like 2 other characters.
Oh yeah,
and I'm
he
like,
talks if you don't aggro him.
Yeah, I was like, am I supposed to have like dialogue here? Like I feel like the new stealth system is making me miss the game and like how they want to present any of these characters, because it's so hard to get into any building without the building going loud. And so like it's just very difficult to actually meet any of these characters in the way where they get to like introduce themselves. And so like run after run, these super dense levels just instantly aggro. And then I'm like, I guess I'll just kill everybody now. And then I kill everybody, and then one of the random people I killed has a pop-up like, I was the important character, because you can literally not notice that they're in the group of enemies you're fighting, because they're just a dude, basically.
Yeah.
Like they all have powers, but you almost never see them do anything power related unless they're like a guy that teleports, for example.
But sometimes they shine a lot, and you're like,
yeah,
look
but
at
also
that shine.
some random enemies also shine a lot because they just have like more stuff. Apparently, they're like shiny. They have loot, I guess.
So dumb.
It
works against the game.
There's way too much loot in this game. That is the number one cause of my deaths. After water. Water kills you instantly in this game, and the next thing that consistently kills me is I'll be shooting a pack of enemies, and I have a rhythm for how death works in this game and what it takes to kill somebody. So I have like controlled bursts and everything. And if there is randomly an enemy boss fight in the middle of the group, then they're hard to kill. So they sometimes kill me entirely via the surprise of the fact that they didn't just die the way that everybody else dies, and that's how they get me.
It's I think it would be totally solved. Deathloop would be solved if it was just the case of in between runs you have a cutscene. It doesn't have to be all in between any run, or when I say even between runs, I mean between levels. You have a little cutscene where Scott, or what's his name, the Colt. And Jessica, what's her name? The 2 main characters. I forget. You said it.
It's Colt and Juliana.
Juliana, that's the one. When they interact, there's like maybe there's a call. They could have a call. Like they have those at a lot of the time, especially at the beginning of the game, they have like a cute little call at the beginning of the level, and they interact, and you get to see the story. But those should be cutscenes where they also add the motivation behind going to this next level. And Colt should be the one to decide, okay, now I'm going to this level because of this. and they should remove all of the option for the player to choose. Now I'm going to do this boss. Now I'm going to do that boss. There's no need for that. I don't need loot. To do away with that. It's bad. And I think the root is because the game has loot that it really wouldn't work otherwise. So if it were linear, if you had cutscenes in between where Colt decides where to go next, and you just now you fight this person in the hangar. Now the Colt realizes, or you like, I mean, it's always Colt realizing things because it's just complete a quest objective. It's not like the player has to realize anything. You just do the quest objective. That's it. So Colt realizing, oh, this person that I killed before is this person, or I need to save them, or they have this password, or whatever. That could be all done in cutscenes, and just make the game linear. You tell the story, because the game is linear. It's just a bunch of kerfuffle in the middle where you just lose track of all of your linear plots anyway. So, like, it's not linear in the sense that, or rather, it's not linear in the sense that you are forced to play it in the same way every time, but the plot lines are all linear, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, linear to the point where like they're still teaching you how to discover an enemy when you've already killed them. Because you haven't done the discovery phases, and you have to do these specific events in the specific order before it'll let you continue.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very odd. I forgot to explain that, like, the reason why I was talking about having to go farm the invisibility power is because, like, the interface gets very repetitive and clunky, and you get tired of dealing with it, but you're like, okay, let's deal with that. And, like, especially when you're doing a Let's Play, you're just like, all right, fucking, what should I spend my residuum on? And you try to, like... just get through the process of the repetitive loot cycle so you get back to the game.
I'm sure it's not going to surprise you to hear that I cut it all out of my Let's Play. All the interface.
Yeah, it's because it's so filler. It's so pointless. Yeah. There's not even like depth to it because there's not that much to the items in general. So it's just it's incredibly wasteful just to like give people the buzz of like, look at all this loot you got, and it's like I don't care. Control. Loot is bad. Control. I'll always be after fucking Control for having like just an insane clutter of loot that are all like, this one's 2%, this one's 3%, this one's 2%, this one's 2%, this one's 4%, this one's 2%. Like just endless repetition of like all the same skill but slightly different percentages, and you have to go through it like it's spam mail. That's what it feels like. It feels like when I'm parsing my junk folder to tell which ones are incorrectly flagged, which ones are correctly flagged as stuff I should keep or throw away. Like sorting through your spam mail is now being simulated via loot in video games. It's like it's completely unnecessary, and it doesn't change. Almost none of it changes the moment-to-moment gameplay. So it's just, if anything, it's like either it's borderline mandatory or it's useless, and it's like this back and forth. So it's like you're either doing a task because you have to, or you're clearing a mess just to get out of the way. But what happened is I guess I just went too fast or something, or I forgot, or I thought I already did it or something, because you feel like you've already done everything. Because like, you're like, do I already have a shoot fire from the hip level 3 upgrade memorized or infused forever, or should I infuse this one? Like that kind of stuff. Like it's so repetitive you can't remember even if you already have one or not. So like at the end of a loop, I just forgot to infuse my invisibility slab. And so I just lost invisibility, which means I now have to go fight the same boss again to get the ability again. And that's not even accounting for the fact that like you can upgrade every ability 4 times. So that means it's not just that you have to kill every boss 5 times to finish unlocking and then upgrading the power, but you have to also have the resources for and remember to spend them on it to keep each upgrade each time. Otherwise, you're in my boat. You're like, I gotta kill that boss again to get that ability. I gotta do a whole loop just for killing that boss. Damn it.
Yep.
And it's like I'm in an awkward position where I spent some time trying to get into that base without invisibility because I specifically lost the invisibility power and don't really want to farm it again, but that's probably where that's going. Womp womp.
Yep.
This game.
That was very much
very interesting to hear about. As someone who's never played this game, I am super compelled to even like look at it. I don't even want to be on the same planet as this game based on how bad these descriptions are.
So my advice was right. Don't play it when it's free.
I mean, I will play it when it's free just because it it obviously is going to be a nightmare to play. Like that's the compelling purpose, is that it's like, wow,
I
a
think you're
game's
just gonna.
so abysmally shit. I like might as well give it a try, right? That's like my whole gimmick.
I think you're just
Um,
gonna give up halfway through the game.
I don't
And
think
just
it's
be like,
that
okay, I don't wanna play
abysmal.
this.
It's just full of modern
This sounds like
bullshit.
fucking garbage, dude. The fact that you can sit there reading paper and someone could be hunting you down, fuck off. I have no interest in a game that can't even take itself like with a modicum of respect enough to just make the game pause when you're reading things. It's so fucking annoying having to already engage in a novel in a game in which I'm trying to interact with this. It's only more obnoxious that I have to also be conscious of the world around me as I'm reading this shitty novel inside of a game I'm playing. Don't do that. Just stop the game. It's fine. You can just pause the game, let me read this garbage lore that's not interesting, and then resume the game. I'm not going to get this like amazing breath of like, oh my God, I can't believe how like genuine this feels that like a guy 40 feet away from me, sipping coffee, watching YouTube videos, heard that I clicked my mouse and opened a file, and now he's gunning for me. Like, no, fuck off. I don't want that. No one wants that. That sounds awful. Like how
I don't like that at all. Yeah.
like imagine in Hitman if you poured something into a drink and like 30 feet away there was a guy, like your target hears a drink get poured and he goes like, I'll never drink a drink again. And you're like, what the fuck? What's the whole point then? Why would I ever interact with this if it can just make me die? Like, why would I do this? This is not incentivizing. Like, it would make more sense then to just, how about I just shoot everybody? Why don't I just kill literally every person in the entire fucking world
The
and
game
then be
wants to
done
do
with
that.
it?
Yeah. The game wants you to do
Yeah,
that. for
like,
sure. And it
why don't
rewards
I
you to
just
do that as well. Like you can complete the object. Well, I don't know. Keith said that there's some stealth specific objectives.
Yeah.
do you have to
Oh,
do the
I got
objectives to win the game?
I don't know.
Yeah. I
Some
got
of them, at
one
least.
where yeah, I got a nasty surprise in one of the levels, and I'm not gonna spoil it.
I don't know if the game
This
will
is-
let you actually
is-
like clear out everybody in one run without having finished the narrative up to that point or something.
Because I again, I would just, this sounds like a game I'll just take my tried and true method approach for, and that like I just am an invincible god and everyone get out of the way. I'm coming for the ending.
They
Like
have
it
nukes,
just doesn't.
though. They have nukes.
Is that gonna bother me? I get to live in like I get to live in like Groundhog Day. Nothing they can do matters. All I just need to know is where the person with the nuke is, and I kill them first. Like it's just that's the thing.
Yeah,
Is
that
like
requires
this-
stealth, doesn't it?
This game's kind of Andrew proof in certain ways, yeah.
It is a little, yeah.
You can't just go
you'd be
you,
surprised.
you can't
But
just
what
go
you're
through and kill
saying-
everybody in one run without solving everything and learning everything and finishing the story because of the fact that you can only play 4 levels per run.
And
like
everything
the-
resets after the fourth.
Yeah, so every time you do a level, the first one's in the morning, then it's noon, then it's afternoon, and then it's evening, and then the loop resets. And
And you need
these
to do 8
enemies are
objectives.
not in the same places at the same time. So that's the plot of the game, is trying to solve how to get enough of them in the same places at the same time that you can do one loop where you kill everyone, essentially. And so that requires doing things in certain locations earlier in the loop that cause people to be in other places later in the loop, and so on. So you can't just gun through it. Also, yes, one of them is in a nuclear facility that they rig to explode the moment they hear you coming. So you have to get them. You have to either defeat them.
Kill them
You have
first.
to,
Is a good
you
one.
either have to defeat that character without them hearing you coming at all, or you have to scramble to solve how to defuse the thing before it explodes on a timer.
Never mind. I have no interest
the
in like
worst-
doing build up
worst
stuff like
mission.
that. I'm not doing stupid shit where I have to like tickle someone's toes and then come back 2 hours later and they're in the bathroom now. Like I'm not
It's
doing
very
that.
much like that.
Hitman is like like the new Hitman really pushed my patience with a lot of shit where it was like, hey, did you know that there's a clown 15 feet in the air and he's taking a pee, and if he pees exactly left of this specific person, if you put them in the right position, it actually makes that person have a hemorrhage that then collides into a nuclear bomb that wipes out 30% of the room and saves this one person that you need, so that next time when you do a run, that one person will drop a key somewhere. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. Where's the person I have to? I don't fucking care. And I just end up not doing it. And I just run through and I kill a guy and then just run out of the building. And the game's like, you did it. I'm like, all right, that's all I needed. Thanks. Like, I don't get the sense of validation or like a good feel, like, haha, I did it feeling of doing these overtly complicated tasks to achieve like a very annoying goal I could just simply achieve by shooting someone in the face. Like, I'm not going to work harder. I'm going to work smarter. Yeah, no, like that's what I'm saying is like that the fact that I cannot kill everybody in a single run without having to do like weird setups sounds not fun. It sounds like literally an anti-fun.
I'm amused by the fact that that phrase means the opposite of how you're using it.
What, anti-fun?
No, work harder, not smarter, or work smarter, not harder. The premise of that is that the really obscure, weird thing that takes relatively little effort and solves the problem for you is the work smarter, and the work harder is the one where you have to sit there and fucking shoot every single enemy because they're all coming after you now and so on. But you're like, no, that's the smart one. Fuck you.
Yeah, that's out. Well, it is pretty hard. It is pretty hard to figure out the smart thing. So I suppose in a way, smart is hard.
I already had this problem beating like I recently just went and beat the Outer Worlds Murder on Eridanos or whatever. And nothing was worse than like starting the game. I went to like the crime scene or whatever. I looked, and then I went up and like talked to the guy who hired me, and I went, "Oh, I know the ending of this game." And then I just had to sit there and be like, "Shit. How do I?"
No way.
Yeah, I knew it immediately. The moment I talked to the guy, I was like, "Oh, I know who did the crime. Wait, how do I kill him?" And then I realized like I had no way of getting to the
you have to like play along with the thing for
you
like
have
a dozen
play
hours.
Along. And I was like,
oh no.
I was like, God fucking damn it. I was like, I hate this. And so I like bit my lip and just silently walked around, pretended like I was like, I'll play Detective Conan, I guess. I'm like, oh, where were you on the night of the 13th? And like just sitting here pretending the whole time, not killing a single person that was important, and then waiting. And it's like, okay, who do you think did it? Oh, okay, cool. This list is just, man, who could have been it? I can't figure it out. Like, I literally, it was so frustrating, but it was one of those like, and you have to just do so much stupid shit. You have to go through and
I got this close to writing an essay just about this DLC, basically.
It's so bad. I was so mad. Like the first question after was like, oh, I know who killed this person. I was like, but why? And then I went to this one spot and I was like, oh, I know exactly why now. And then the rest of the game was like, oh, let me tease you about what's possibly going on with the facility here. Like, yeah, I get the whole, it's right. It's just, it's in the fucking load screen. You have it in there. Like, you spoiled it in the loading screen. They're like,
yeah,
but it's a worm. Yeah, the thing in the loading screen. Am I stupid? Like,
it's very strange that it's that deal. So like,
bruh, it's just the episode of Futurama where they find out how Slurm is made. Fuck off. I'm done with this. I have no interest in fucking.
Yes, it is the Slurm DLC, but
I hate it.
It bothered me so much that I thought the game was broken or something was wrong, or they must have not been working right or something. Surely they couldn't have designed it this way. Because yeah, like not only do you almost immediately know what's going wrong with this facility, but it's like an active war zone situation that's really apparent. And like only a couple hours into the DLC, like mind controlled brain-worn zombie people start attacking the main square of the DLC, like actively and openly over and over again. Like it is just an incredibly actively apparent, super obvious problem. But the game does not acknowledge that that's happening for like 10 hours. Like you get it's and then suddenly at the end of the DLC, there's narratively like an outbreak, bad times thing happening, and it's like, but this has been happening the whole time, right there,
that,
next to everybody.
Yeah.
All the like, what? Who made this DLC? What the fuck? It's so bizarre.
My favorite.
It's like getting to chat like day 11 of Pathologic, and then somebody is like, "Yo, there's an outbreak. There's like a virus outbreak or something in this game. You guys notice this?" It's like, yeah, it was the whole game. What?
So I got the kind of the opposite experience of Andrew. I did not understand who the culprit was, but my problem wasn't that I didn't understand who it was, is that I didn't care. So I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. I was just trying to, playing a role-playing game both to see where it goes as well as to see what I can do. The game never really gave me too much of a choice. There's some choices that you make, but I think ultimately it just changes like midway, the mid of some missions rather than actual anything of consequence at the end. And for me, the biggest reveal at the end wasn't necessarily who did it. It was just the sort of cliche. So spoilers for Murder in Eridanos. There's a twin sister. And for me, it was like the big reveal. That's the thing I took away from the Murder of Eridanos DLCs. There was a twin sister.
Extremely goofy.
Yeah,
Goofy.
that was like the only twist where I was like, okay, that's cool, I guess. And then, but it still didn't change anything because like the whole point is like you have to solve the mystery, and I was like, well, I already know the answer. I don't care if there's like a twist. Like, what's the twist gonna do?
Until you just now mentioned the outbreak and like the guy and why there was, I was thinking back. Oh, that's right. The DLC ended with this big worm eating the scientist. And, like that's supposed to be the big climax, and I completely forgot about it because it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter.
Mine broke. So the worm eats a scientist, and then the worm broke and couldn't move.
Oh yeah,
so
I just me as well. I shot it.
I just sat there and I was like, man, this is so quality. I cannot believe you guys made fucking like Fallout New Vegas. I don't know how you did that. Must have been like an accident. Like someone must have spilt coffee on the computer or something. Like how did this? I was like, what? I don't know.
I'm okay with broken bosses. I wish all bosses were broken so I could shoot them.
My entire I was so mad. I was so mad because I found I killed the boss. I killed the boss, and then I walked to my left and I was like, oh, there's a control panel here. What does this do? And it just like apparently if the boss wasn't broken, you can do a mechanic where you can like gas the boss and make it upset and do things like you shoot fire on it. And I was like, I didn't even know this existed. I didn't even know the boss moved because it didn't move. It just stood there the whole time. I didn't even know it was supposed to move. I was like, oh my God.
Deus Ex Human Revolution has the same issue with the bosses. Like you shoot the boss and do the boss after multiple tries, and then, there's a bunch of computers all over the place that allows it to fight the boss a little easier.
Yeah, and I think
weren't those
the
all the
only
things that they patched into Deus Ex because they're trying to make them less combat-oriented boss fights?
Oh, that might be. You're right.
Because they added a bunch of non-lethal solutions to that game, and I think that's what those were like attempts to get rid of the basic thing that everyone hated about that game.
I killed all my bosses with tranquilizer darts and tasers, and it's supposed to be non-lethal. They died a lot.
They died a lot. They do almost exclusively die like narratively, like a second later, whether you wanted them to do it or not.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only catharsis I had was that the game doesn't, because it's like, Outer Worlds is an RPG, and this DLC is supposed to take place like again in between the game, like it's supposed to be somewhere. So one, it's supposed to be a DLC that takes place somewhere in between, like like before the ending of the game, but like closer to the ending, because the level that it requires you to be at isn't like really low.
It's super
but it's
high,
kind of,
I thought.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't. Well, I think no, it's not that. It's not that high because I was way too high for it. So it couldn't have been that high. Because I like literally I had no trouble. Anytime something was like, well, I don't know. I had enough like speech. I had enough science. I had enough medical. I had enough engineering. I just breezed through that whole DLC. Like every combat was a hilarious like, oh, hello child, and then just like punched it once and it died. Like it just nothing was a threat. So I think, but I'm also, I went that entire game killing everything. So technically, my level is like slightly skewed because of that. I'm clearly just a chaos machine. Um, but uh, but yeah, like the only nice thing is because the game works like that. It's a DLC that assumes that you still have more of the game to play. It doesn't, when it's done, it doesn't just like cutscene away and and roll credits. It just ends. It's just like, okay, well, yeah, thanks, Captain. See you later.
Go
And
find something
so
else to do now.
You got a new companion as well.
Yeah. I didn't know because I don't accept
because you killed her most likely.
So what I did was after the game was done and it was like, goodbye, Captain, then I was like, now I'm free. And so then I went and killed every single person that was on the island that made me sit there and talk to them about such stupidly mundane shit. I especially killed the guy that owned Sublight part of the Sublight facility, because fuck that guy. I was so tired of his like cocky attitude about like, I think you're gonna solve this, Inspector. You're doing very good. I was like, okay, all right, sure, buddy. And then I killed the lady because obviously she was really annoying and like tried to make me feel bad. She like tried to make me feel guilty about something I did. I don't remember what it was I did. I think
I guess you didn't succeed.
No, she didn't succeed, but like she did something to make. She was like trying to make me feel guilty about a decision I made, and I was like, I don't know if anybody's told you about how this playthrough's been, but like guilt is the number one source of people dying in this world. So like, gotta take you out now. So I just like killed her, I killed that guy, and then I went and killed all the people I had to talk to about the crime, like had an interview and stuff. Because all of them were really bad characters, and I didn't want to talk to them any more than I had to.
You didn't like the interview, wizard?
No,
person?
like everyone was boring. Everyone was so obviously not a bad guy, and it was so obnoxious. It literally, like Detective Conan is a show, an anime made for fucking children, like 10-year-old children, and that has more in-depth characters than this game does. Like at least in Conan, I go like, oh man, I don't know, man, that guy could technically be evil. He seems, I don't know, I don't trust this guy. But this game is like, this guy's so fucking dumb. I would be literally impressed if he managed to kill somebody, let alone put his clothes on. And then like, I know why I killed her. I remember why I killed her. I killed her because she killed the one. There's this fucking guy in a mascot costume, and he's like, he shows up and he's like, I'm going through your stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing in here? And he's like, I needed to get stuff for a guy. I'm leaving now. I was like, no. Don't leave. Just fucking tell me that I'm right, because I know the answer to this. I just need somebody to not be weird about it. And I know you know the answer. He's like, oh, I'll tell you. You got to meet me at a place. Like, no. I'm not meeting you fucking anywhere, because if you leave this building, you will die. Don't leave. Tell me. I was like, just tell me the answer. And he's like, oh, I can't. I got to get back to my boss. And he just runs out. And I was like, I swear, dude, if this guy's fucking dead, I'm going to lose it. And so I go to the thing and he's fucking dead. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Whoever fucking killed this guy, I'm done with you. I fucking hate this. And so then the lady's like, oh, I killed that guy. He was spying on me. I was like, it was you. You did this. I was like, I cannot let you live. You fucking ingrate. And I told her, I was like, that guy was innocent. And she was like, no. It's completely fine. He was like totally stalking me. It's a whatever. I was like, no, you literally just kill an innocent guy. And then she turns around and like I think I said something about like, it's fine if we gas this entire place and everyone dies from the toxin or whatever, as long as we kill the bugs. And she's like, that's not okay. And I was like, you killed an innocent person. Fuck off. You don't get to guilt trip me. What the fuck is this shit? Like, you're gonna turn around and be like, oh, I have a moral conscience, but I didn't kill that guy. That he deserved that. And I was like, I'm not playing games with you. Fuck off, dude. This is shit. And and so I did that. But it like is so long. It's so long to get to this. It is very long, like, yeah. It somehow felt longer than the other DLC did. I felt like
because it is. The other one was mostly just reading computers, and that's
was.
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah, like it felt longer, but that made it worse somehow, which was confusing.
It's not a good enough quest to be so long. These DLCs should be smaller DLCs, basically.
And I didn't like,
and I didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't skimp either. I did all the side quest shit too. Like I did all of the stuff you're supposed to do to like figure out who done it, and like I figured out where the deliveries go. I got the weird soda gun or the liquor gun. I don't know what they make. Did they make booze?
Terrible.
They I
there was a wacky soda gun.
I literally did everything in this DLC, and it was still like, what am I? Why? Where's the fun in this? Where's the fun parts? The parts that make me go like, I'm a space cowboy or something. Like it just
were some. I thought there were some fun.
You're gonna carry that weight.
Maybe, but like
how dare.
I don't like the cult lady. The cult lady, I talked to her, and as soon as I talked to her, I was like, "Oh, okay, so you're innocent. You're clearly not a bad guy." And then I talked to a person outside, and she was like, "Boy, coming here has been a great time. My entire life has just fallen to ruin since I came here, and I'm so happy." And then I talked to another person who said the same thing. I was like, "Oh, so this is like a bad." Yeah, I was like, "Oh, this is like a bad cult." And so I just turned around, walked back in the tent, and killed the lady who owned the cult, and then killed everyone in the cult, and then walked out of the building.
I thought she was a great character. She was really. I thought she was really well written.
I don't know, because I talked to her once.
She was very well written with bullets.
Yeah, like I said, I talked to her once, and I immediately was like, "You definitely killed nobody. You're so fucking incompetent. You're just too stupid to have done this." And then literally walked out. Found out everything about this place was really bad, cleaned it off the map just to get rid of that whole problem, and then and then just kept moving on. I think I killed like a bunch of other people outside too, because there's a bunch of hunting parties of rich people. Yeah, I didn't understand what was going on, but like every time I walked up, I was like, oh man, they got a bunch of cool shit here, and so I would take their stuff, and they got mad at me, and they're like, "Hey, you're stealing from me." I was like, "I'm not stealing anything, dude. You guys are out here. This isn't your stuff. You're just standing out here hiding behind it." And so, yeah, I had to kill like all of these rich people and these sublight guards. So the sublight people fucking hated me. Because like by the time I was beating the game, all the sublight, I had killed like so many sublight people. Because they kept getting in my way every time I was trying to do stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, it was just annoyance after annoyance. But
am I mistaken in saying that that Outer Wilds does not Yes. The Outer Worlds. That one.
The older these games get, the harder it is to remember which one's called what. This is Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds.
So, am I mistaken in saying that there's no stealing in that game? That there's no sense of personal property?
There is absolutely stealing in that game, and it's fucking weird. You will randomly. Yeah. I specifically remember being in the open field outside the facility, and like I had picked up a bunch of items, and there would just randomly be one item that's red. It's like you have to very carefully read every. You have to look at the icon and very carefully every time you pick up any item, because they'll jump scare you with random stuff that counts as stealing, and you can't tell in advance which ones it's gonna be. Like it's really random which ones counts as kind of stealing, and they'll often just be like. Just like garbage strewn in a field is stealing sometimes, but like a house full of stuff isn't, and you can't. Like, what's happening? Help!
That's what I was saying. Is like these people weren't. It's not like this was a camp. They were just literally hiding behind barrels and trying to shoot dogs or whatever. And so I walked up. I was like, okay, cool. And so I just walked in. I started taking stuff. And they're like, that's our stuff. And I was like, how is this your stuff? It's literally just boxes in the middle of nowhere. What the fuck is this? Like,
stop
I can understand
right there, criminal scum.
Yeah, and I was like, all right. Well, unfortunately none of you know who you're saying stop to. So it's just this unfortunate, like, all right, bye guys. But
they don't attack
I think the
you?
only person they absolutely do. They get super mad at you.
He means they don't know what kind of mess they got into because they're trying to stop Andrew.
Right.
You're trying to like stop me, and it's like, well, you can stop anybody else, but sorry, but
stop these.
I think the only person I didn't kill in that game was the guy who had like the giant monkey. I didn't kill him.
Guy.
Yeah, he had
was
like
it?
some whatever the radioactive gorillas are. They have these like giant gorillas or whatever.
Speaking of, oh
I
god,
don't.
speaking of fights, you
I
just get
recall
really
that,
tired of
yes.
doing over and over again.
I
Yeah,
recall the giant
I don't
gorillas.
know. He had like some giant purple gorilla, and I walked out, and some lady was like, "I want you to take his land," and I was like, what? Okay." And so I walked over. I was like, "Yeah, tell me about the land that you've apparently need taken from you." And he's like, "Yeah, I've been living here since I was like 1 years old, and this is my land." I was like, "Okay, well,
Oh yeah, I remember
sounds
that
good." And he was
guy.
like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,"
the
and
giant
I
gorilla.
was like, "Well, I was told to like
That
take
was
your
fun.
land. I don't think I'm gonna do that because I really don't give a shit about that, and I don't want to fight your gorilla because it looks like a problem." So I was like, "I'm just gonna leave." And he was like, "All right, take some water." And I was like, "Thanks, I guess." And so I went in his house, cleaned everything out of his house, and then
Of
left.
course.
And then um yeah, I went back to the camp, and the lady's like, "Well, but did you kill the old man and take his land?" I was like, "No, I'm not gonna do that." And then so she's like, "Well, now we're gonna have to kill you." And I was like, "Isn't that a little of an escalation? Like, you can go kill him
Yeah.
if you want to. I didn't like come at you or anything. I just said, nah, I don't want to do your quest. Like, why are you guys so aggro?" And then so I just
Yep.
killed them. And I was like, "Well, great. Now nobody's getting his land. Was this the smart choice? I don't understand.
The
I
game
don't get
does
it."
end up with a lot of those situations, and I think it's kind of inevitable in a combat centered game because it makes narrative sense. Well, maybe it doesn't make narrative sense.
There's a
But
lot of quests that just arbitrarily end in a gunfight when
yeah,
it's often just you be
Yeah.
like, nah. Like, oh, well, then I guess we're
Yeah,
gonna have to show the old fashioned way. I'm like, why?
but that's such an old trope as well. Like it doesn't have to be in a shooter sense. Like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are like that. Some of the oldest RPGs, it's inevitably like you have all these involved dialogues and choices about being whether you're nice or not to the person that you're dealing with, or you're sympathetic or whatever, but it always ends in combat. It's especially the first Baldur's Gate. The second one is a little bit different, but mostly it's the same. But it's the first game it's invariably like that. You find a person that you're like, oh, this person is like, I don't know, is like a robber, and you have all these discussions, and they tell you, oh, I'm a robber because my mother was a witch or whatever. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm very sympathetic, and then they attack you and you kill them, or you're like, oh, you're the worst, and you attack them. It's always the same, and it's just a
Yeah,
trope of RPGs.
I would like RPGs to normalize saying no. It's
Fallout 1
completely
does that.
okay to just say no to things after you get the context. Like if you go like, "Oh, I'll do this quest or whatever," and you find out someone's like, "Yeah, I
Yes.
want you to like, could you go and like check out a place for me?" And I go like, "Oh, okay." And I check out, and it's like a complete nightmare situation. I'm like, "Oh, this is all I don't want anything to do with
Yes.
this." And I walk up and I say like, "I'm going to decline this quest." And they're like, "Okay, we're going to have to kill you." I'm like,
Yeah.
how is this the logical outcome of saying no to your quest? Like I
And that's
don't
not
know
the
what
only
I'm
thing.
supposed to do because I'm not leaving it in my quest log, and I can't just abandon it. So what am I supposed to do except kill everyone? Like
And
it's not my fault. I didn't ask for these people to be aggressive. Like I
didn't
don't
ask
get
for
I
it.
don't know if
Yes.
it's like an artifact of quest design or whatever, but I think it ties into another thing that's very common in RPGs or video games anyway, which is you go up to a person, they're like, "Okay, I need your help with something, and it's really illegal. Can you help me?" And your character asks, "What is it?" And they say, "I'm not gonna tell you unless you agree to help me." And that doesn't make any sense. Because why would you say no? Just say yes, and they tell you, and they say no after, right? But in video games, it's always like you have to make the choice before you know what it is. It doesn't. What? I don't have to make any choice. Just say yes. Like imagine a criminal goes up to you and says, "Okay, I need you to help me with something really illegal." Say yes. Ask what it is. They say, "Oh, it's to kill your mother." No, no, thanks. Bye. But in video games, the end result is that they attack you if you say no, and it's so right, and it's so contrived as well. Like it makes no sense.
It's really dumb, and especially in a game like Outer Worlds is a game very very specifically about people being terrible people, but just having really weird mental gymnastics to justify their like
Yes.
inhumane actions. And so a
Mhm.
lot of the times people say stuff like, oh, this guy ran off with really important documents. And you're like, okay, I'll go get him. And you go to the person, the guy's like, yeah, I have this paperwork showing that actually these people are like doing testing on infants and trying to make the infants vomit blood uncontrollably so they can harvest the blood and give it to rich people. And then you're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely not taking those documents from you. I'm going to go talk to that guy and like sort this out. And you go talk to him and you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to take these documents. He's like, well, I'm going to have to kill you. And it's like, well, I think this isn't going to end the way you want it to, which I assumed was getting the documents back. Like, how is this going to help you? I don't get it.
Like, I have extremely bad news for how attacking me ends.
Yeah, and it's like it only gets, especially Outer Worlds, it only gets funnier the more that like people keep having notoriety about you, or like, oh, you're the captain of the Unreliable, and I'm like, okay, so if you've heard about me, then you know. Tell me point blank about the fucking quest, because if I say no and you attack me, I will wipe out your planet. So let's do this. What is your quest? And like people just go like, so this guy, he totally said something really rude and then just ran off and it ruined my business. And I, okay, that's it. He just said something bad. He slandered you, right? So it's completely falsehood slandering. And he's like, yes, it is a complete slander. What did the guy say? Well, well, I told the guy that it was unfair that he wasn't paying me for 3 fucking weeks and I was starving to death and I wasn't able to actually make it to work. But if he fired me, I would have been shot out of a cannon into the sun and would have died. So I told him that it was really unfair that he treated people badly and ran off before he killed me. Okay, sir, again, must I remind you, I will not kill a person who you've treated badly. That's on you. Don't do that. Well, I guess I have to kill you. Okay, like, I guess we will just do this again. And then it's just, that's the whole plan. That's the whole thing. I played the whole game like that until I got to the very top of the game where somehow, again, the whole game is just a culmination of a really, really rich guy in a really ugly but fashionably rich, I guess, building telling me I've got this entire mission for if you just kill this crazy scientist guy who's just a complete bad guy. He is making so many lies up about the colony. You don't even know. Like, dude, this colony is the best colony. Trust me. Ask anybody. And this scientist guy's ruining it. And you just have to sit there and go, all right, so what you're telling me is that this colony, the colony, by the way, that me, Captain of the Unreliable, who has visited every planet in the Halcyon colony, yeah, the guy who's visited every planet has solved multiple issues in this entire fucking colony, who by this point now, as the owner of the colony, you should at least know about me. You're asking me to look at the colony at which I have just traveled through and tell me it's a good colony. That's what you want from me. And he's like, yes, I 100% am satisfied this colony is good. Well, I have to disagree. Well, we have to kill you. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to do this again. Like, why? Why is everyone's answer to any kind of disagreement violence? It's like someone just took the United States and then turned it to like 10. It's ridiculous.
To 10.
Like, yeah, well, obviously 11 would just be nukes, but these people are just regular Americans, so it's just a 10. It's just ridiculous, though. Like, how is every response that is not satisfactory violence? I don't get it. Like,
because the tools of gameplay are violence,
which is fine, but I think that, like, I think in an RPG, it's hard for me to roleplay when I have to, like, literally roleplay either, like, okay, I'm gonna play along, or, well, I know for a fact that this guy's gonna fucking murder me, and I also know for a fact that based on every other situation I've been in prior to this guy, everyone has been, these people lie, and the people that they're talking about are just trying to survive. So at some point, I might as well just cut the fucking chase and kill the guys that I interact with first that I know are scummy, and then just go talk to the good guys and see what they're being scummy about, and then kill them later. Like, why even bother? Like, it's just
it really is down to the fact that the tools of gameplay are shooting. Like in Disco Elysium, the worst punishment that you get, both from a mechanical and a storytelling perspective, is that Kim leaves your party for a little bit. He's pissed and he leaves you for a little bit. And in the next day he comes back. But spoiler alert. But that's the worst punishment that the game gives you. Well, there's
the worst possible thing that can happen is that Kim doesn't like you at the end.
Yeah.
Oh no.
and yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, there's game over screens and all that based on your choices, but the point is, because the tools of Disco Elysium are dialogue and interacting with characters and having having that sort of exploration based on what's going on and getting to know the different situations. The punishment is that you don't get to interact with your or companion in the same way, or your companion is maybe not gonna in the future reciprocate or whatever. And that's nice. That's really nice. That's a really memorable thing that happens in Disco Elysium. But no, in shooter games, it's always now I have to kill you. That makes sense. Yeah.
I
guess
just
you
feel
have
bad.
to die.
I just feel bad for somebody who's like, I want to write a real human being, and then someone just like barrels into the room and is like, yeah, but they better try to kill the player, and you're like, why do they have to try to kill the player? Why can't we talk it out? Why can't we have any kind of diplomacy options? And it's like, well, the option is either go my way or die, and it's like, that's not diplomacy.
You have some characters like that though, like the Moonhead.
I don't think any of the corporate people were willing to do any kind of democracy. They were basically just like, it's either my capitalism or your grave. And I'm like, I have to do like the stupid meme where it's like, I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, you better call an ambulance, but not for me. And then like kill him. Like, what's the whole point? Like, it's so silly. Like
it's worth pointing out. It's worth pointing out that it isn't capitalism; it's corporativism. The game is actually kind of cautious about that, and it doesn't tie it too much to capitalism, although the imagery is there. But
I don't know, man. All these people sure are really adamant about selling products and making sure they can get more products out to people to sell, which sounds pretty capitalism to me, man.
For sure.
Like, I mean,
the game is a little bit ambivalent in that, which I think works for its benefit, but we can simplify it if we're.
Which is, I guess, I don't know. I'm thinking about like, I don't even think Cyberpunk was this anti-corporation. Like it was.
Of course, it wasn't. Are you kidding me?
I don't remember. I
Can
don't
you
remember
imagine
really
making
any
an anti-corporativist game. What do you
I
think
just don't remember much in. Well, Outer Worlds is anti-corporate. It's like super blatantly
absolutely.
anti-corporate. But it's weird that it's not a punk game. Like I wouldn't call Outer Worlds a punk genre game. It's just it's just an RPG where if you want to, you can be anti-corporation, but it's not technically required. Like it's like it's like in your heart of hearts, if you're a normal, healthy human being, any interaction with these like the corporate people, you go like, wow, these are all bad people. I don't want them to be in charge of anything. But you can, it's totally like acceptable for you to just be like, well, he's got a point. These guys are so stupid. They won't survive without the corporation or whatever. But in Cyberpunk, it's not like that at all. Like there is not I don't know. There's not like
brain, basically.
Yeah, it's not. There's not really a point at which you go. There's like one bad corporation. And you're like, man, the Wayne Corp is so bad. I can't believe that they own everything. And then so like hating any kind of part of the corporation in Cyberpunk just feels. It's what it is. Like I don't even remember the name of the corporation, but like that they just owned. Sure, they just owned everything basically. They're just like, this is the biggest corporation in corp land. And like, they're the corpiest corp of corps. And you're like, oh, fuck, I guess that's the only business in this entire industry. And so, but like, you never interact with other like businesses except for the ones you need to survive, like the medical business or the like shopkeepers that sell you stuff. But you're not like rebelling against the hot dog salesman. You're not like, this guy is a corporate sellout. Like, you don't really do anything about that. You just, I don't know. You just move on.
the whole genre of hyperinflating a corporation in a setting to make it dystopic like that. Unfortunately, it's difficult to make it jump to the point. Basically, you're always like a Judge Dredd kind of setting, or a cyberpunk kind of setting, or the what's the other one that's with Deckers and whatever, Shadowrun. That's the one. Those settings, like, they're not meant to teach anything. They're like you can tell stories that have morals, obviously, but like the setting itself is just the aesthetics of the dystopic future of corporative monopolies and stuff like that. Because the real moral of those types of settings is that a corporation becomes like a government in and of itself without democratic accountability. And that's the sort of conclusion, or the sort of realization that has real life implications that people often don't associate with the video games. Basically, you can look at Wayne Corp or whatever in Cyberpunk and be like, oh, these people have too much power. And it's be like, oh, this is bad that they have too much power because they're just rich. Why? Like, that's not nice. Why would they have power just because they're rich, right? But at the same time, they're capable of looking at I don't know, simple things like healthcare, for example, and say that government-owned healthcare is bad because it's subject to corruption, while the alternative of government-owned healthcare is corporate-owned healthcare that doesn't have corruption, but it has profit motive, which is the same thing as corruption. It's just leeches. So not that I'm excusing corruption in government, anything, for anything, but the point is, people apply a double standard in real life because it's not as dystopic as it is in those settings. But the conclusion is it's difficult to make. So I don't think that it's fair to. Cyberpunk is a very smooth brain game in many regards, but I don't think it's fair to criticize it in that regard. It doesn't take the stance. I don't think it would be possible to take the stance. It's such a complicated thing, even for political people having a chat about it. It's difficult to vocalize what I'm trying to say.
But I feel like Disco Elysium did a good job of having conversations with people, not realistic, because talking to people is never an enjoyable experience like it can be in a game. But it feels like there's actual nuance to conversations in Disco Elysium. It feels like you can talk to people and say things that don't obviously feel evil. Like you can say something and it isn't just like immediately making a black or white decision, which is what always feels like in a lot of, I guess, first person shooter RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like your decisions are very obvious. You're either doing the Renegade or the Paragon route. Like, you don't get the option to be subtle, right? You can't be like, oh, I'm pro capitalism, but like also anti but I'm also pro union. Like, I love business, but I also love unions. You can't like be that in Outer Worlds because there is no such thing. It's just you're either like on the side of subjugating people, or you're not. And it's just, I don't know. I don't like the idea that I can't get the full information about a situation and be just disinterested. Like, oh no, this actually goes against my values. Sorry. And they're like, you just don't see it the right way. Damn you. And then you just burn a bridge or whatever. The guy's like, don't come back to my office. I won't help you. And you're like, oh no. And then later down the road, you find out like, shit, I need this guy's fish supply to help feed a nation, but I can't talk to him because he wanted me to do a bad and I didn't do it. Like, I don't know. It feels really sad, I guess. And like Cyberpunk was the same way, where it just showed up and people just told you like, that's a bad corporation. I'm like, well, can I talk to somebody? He's like, don't talk to anybody. It's bad. And you're like, okay. And then the one time you talk to somebody, they're like, yeah, it's actually okay that we own 90% of the city because look, these people are poor and stupid, and I don't think they need anything but our own guidance, the rich and the smart. And I'm like, well, you've compelled me very subtly. You've compelled me to be on your side. I can tell that you come from a place of moral superiority. I am not going to engage any kind of violence with you. Like, what? No, I'm gonna burn your city to the ground now. Goodbye. I hope you liked it. I hope it was fun eating whatever shit weird cyberpunk food you did on the 12th floor of this awful building. Like, have fun. Uh,
It's all down to
it's
what the games are designed to do. Like if you strip it all down to the basic fundamental design of a
shooting,
role-playing game,
pew
it's
pew.
meant to get you from a beginning of the game, and you understand what the beginning of the game means. If I tell you of any game, it's meant to get you from there to the end of the game. And again, you understand what the end of the game means. And there's multiple ways of doing that. There's games with a lot of combat. There's games with a lot of dialogue. There's games with skill checks, whatever. There can be amazingly written quests, or they can be just linear cutscenes. It's still the same principle, getting you from the beginning to the end. And if you look at Disco Elysium, if you distill Disco Elysium, it's actually not the point of the game. To the point where I think the ending doesn't the ending has to work so hard. It like goes overboard to the point of it being a little bit like cliche. Cliche is not the word, but it's like it's so in your face that it's trying to get to a climax at the end. But that's not like it's not the point of the game. The point of the Disco Elysium is to get you to know interestingly written character. They're interestingly written, but like they're interesting characters that are realistically written. Like I think of the lady that's outside of the bookshop, for example. She's really memorable. Think of the lady that is the wife of that guy that you find in the pier. She's really memorable. Kuno, obviously, and those guys that are playing Patank, the crypto fascist, the lady in the wheelchair, the dude in the dude behind the balcony, the counter, I should say, in the starting area. And those are like, I don't think Kuno is a little bit of a main character, but I think those all side characters. None of them are important characters. They're isolated from each other for the most part, and they don't talk about each other. And it doesn't feel bad that is like that, because I've played games where characters don't talk about each other. It feels terrible. You just go up to them and they say a bunch of stuff, and it's not interesting, and that's it. That's the character. Nothing else happens. In Disco Elysium, characters are relatively isolated from each other, but they still feel interesting because, for one, they tell a lot about the world as well as themselves. Then Disco Elysium really does that, and I think it's important. But it does that on purpose to make it interesting. Otherwise, it would feel weird going up to the Patank people and just hearing about their gripes and not really learn about the Civil War and the socioeconomical situations that led them to where they are, or to go up to Kuno and not learn about the drug situation or how the cops are not nowhere and all that. But the point of the game at the end of the day is to just get to interesting characters, and you can enjoy them or not. If you don't like them, you can skip them. It's fine. But it's a fundamentally written, or rather, it's a fundamentally designed kind of game, and that's why Disco Elysium has that possibility of just being, maybe you fail. Maybe it's because you failed a skill check, and your character didn't understand what was right in front of them, or maybe it's because you decided not to do the quest that the character was saying, and it feels rewarding just the same, because it's just a completely different design philosophy. I don't know if I'm
games are complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I understand what you're saying. I don't by any stretch mean that it's easy to write dialogue for video games,
sure.
especially RPGs. Like, that's just, it's already too much dialogue as it is. So I don't, I understand that it can be harder to try to not only write what is essentially like 3 books and then combine them into one,
and script them all.
But it's just
code.
It can just be really infuriating sometimes when you find that there isn't the there isn't really an option for you to role play. There isn't a role that you can actually play in. You just have to. Yeah, it is like the Mass Effect problem I have too, where it's like I end up becoming the same person every time because it's kind of the only way that I I enjoy playing, and that's really the only option I have besides the alternative, which is not fun. Like there's not a middle ground I can be in where I could be like, ah, I'm just the shepherd that said nothing. Like I did nothing. I just kind of coasted through all of this. I killed a reaper once and nobody asked me any follow-up questions. Like it just like I don't know, like it's weird that it's weird my but do you understand what I'm saying? Like it's like I show up, I kill Sauron or Saruman, whatever his name was.
Saren?
Both of them.
Sarmander.
Sarmander, Sar.
And I killed him, stopped him from floating because that's not how gravity works. And we all moved on from it, right? But instead, it's like, yeah, but even though you did this thing, we have to look back at what you did before and oh, good, you were a good person. I'm like, what the well, yeah, I didn't like what was I gonna do? Was not like I'm not gonna punch a person interviewing me. That's a little extreme. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna like shoot a guy in the knee and throw him into the snow. That's kind of extreme. I I can ignore these people. Technically, I guess that's an option. You can be like a neutral, but and uh, I don't think a neutral path is a. I don't really think that's it actually does
I don't think
anything. I think they
I don't
treat.
think it's
I think
possible.
they, yeah, I think they treat neutrality
yeah.
as evil. Um, it's just like you
It's
just
not
didn't
evil.
do
It's
anything.
Renegade. The first game is better
Well,
at that than the second.
right, renegade, but yeah, it doesn't feel like it. I don't know. Just the whole black and white good and evil thing is I guess necessary, but I just always will wish that there's some level of personality involved. Like I wish I could just be who I actually am and not have to be like a, an all powerful tyrant, like forcing everyone to endure my way of thinking because I can't I can't just be wrong about stuff. I can't be like, "Oh, I don't know. Is that fine? I don't really know." Cuz then it's like, "Now you're a bad guy." It's like, oh, "Okay, well, I guess I got to redo this." It's just
In
but
I think that's impossible. That's well, maybe not impossible, but that's just too much to ask of of a game that has the constraints that Mass Effect has.
it's weird because I think the closest I've ever felt to this being possible was like Telltale games. Like sometimes in Telltale games, I feel like I could make mistakes because I don't know. Like some choices can be so obscure enough that I'm like, oh, I don't. That sounds like it's a good idea, and then it turns out to like, yeah, I think you should go say hi to that guy. And it turns out like going saying hi to that guy meant that the person falls down 6 flight of stairs, accidentally punches a child, and then like catapults into like a lake of lava. And you're like, oh, I didn't mean to kill that guy. I just thought telling him to talk to somebody was a pretty innocent choice. And so like sometimes it feels like I can make
Oh yeah,
mistakes
that makes sense.
unintentionally, but
Mhm.
but yeah, but otherwise it's really obvious if you're a bad person. Like games
thing with
aren't,
Mass
I
Effect
guess, huh?
the thing with Mass Effect is that they never allow any hint of questioning that the Council is a bad institution on its face, according to the morals of our current world. Not even according to the morals of me. According to the morals of our world, the Council is a racially segregated, plutocratic dictatorship with like actual spies that go like super killers, which are the specters that rule over the known galaxy and ostracize people who go against them. It's like a super bad thing, and you know it's no question is given. And I don't know why it's like that. My suspicion is that they wrote the council without thinking too much, without being like, okay, let's make this interesting, cool looking cyber dictatorship, not cyber, space dictatorship, and let's not think too hard about it. Yeah, it's terrible, but they didn't even think about it. I think they came up with the idea for the political situation of Mass Effect and didn't think through the implications of what it is.
I mean,
And I
it's
think
very unusual to get to play as a cop and the game question that institution.
Yes.
And you're playing
Yeah.
as like a super cop that doesn't play by the rules in Mass Effect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I don't think it. But I don't know that it was on purpose. The game does have some very pro cop attitudes, especially the second one, but the first one as well. And so that's revealing of the authors, but or at least of those particular sections. But I don't think they thought of those things. I don't think they ever were critical enough in their analysis of the fundamental premise of the political situation of Mass Effect. And in Mass Effect
Probably
1, it
not.
matters more. I think it matters more in Mass Effect 1 than in Mass Effect 2. Because Mass Effect 2, no spoilers, or there's no need for me to say, but Mass Effect 2 basically is just a series of companion quests. And then there's a setup for Mass Effect 3 at the end. There's no... You're not really finding out about anything new. There's no development really being made. Not even about the fundamental main character that is with you from the beginning, which is that guy in the hologram. What's his name? The Inspector. I don't remember the name, but it's got a weird name. You don't really find out anything about him. Was it now? Do you know the one that
what guy are we talking about that's in a hologram?
Yeah, in Mass Effect 2, you're resurrected by... Mass Effect 2 starts out so weird. Because, like, Mass Effect 1,
Mass Effect 2. We're talking about the... I almost said the Invisible Man.
Yeah, it is. It is that. The Mysterious Man. That's yeah. That's true, yeah.
Played by Martin Sheen. The Elusive Man. There we go.
The Elusive Man. You never really find out anything about him.
Yeah, that guy.
And the game doesn't really throw you any rope either. So you don't, like, you finished Mass Effect 2 and you're not like, oh man, I really wanted to find out more about... No, the game doesn't throw anything. It's just like, whatever, it's just that. And at least in Mass Effect 2, you get to question the premise of having a corporation having so much power. The corporation that resurrects you. Mass Effect, I'm going to point it out. It's a game that starts with you dying and then getting immediately resurrected. That is the setup. They should have ended the first Mass Effect with you dying. That would have been cooler, but also it would have made the second Mass Effect more memorable. Because you're like 10 minutes into the first cutscene, you're like, wait, what? Why? What? Wait, what? Like,
it does weirdly feel like the thing you do when it's time to make a sequel possible, but you already killed the guy. But they just do it in the sequel and then immediately bring you back, which is it's a bit of a strange setup.
There's no build up. You should have played there should have been like an intro or something of Shepard being dead and you just control the robot, like in Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is not quite like that.
You just control the robot.
I still think that the tutorial from Knights of the Old Republic 2 is the best tutorial of any game.
I think it would have been better if you accidentally cloned Shepard. Like it was just an accident.
There's just a real Shepard out there still somewhere. Like they didn't kill Shepard's not dead.
Yeah.
What if you were playing a clone of Shepard and then you met Shepard? They did a version of that in Mass Effect 3.
No spoilers.
Oh yeah,
I haven't played it.
What?
You haven't played Mass Effect 3? Oh, weird.
I need to. I will play it, but first I'll play that Dragon Age Inquisition.
No, don't do that.
Really? People say it's better than Dragon Age 2. And I thought Dragon Age 2 was banging. It was great.
No, Dragon Age 2 is way better than Dragon Age Inquisition. These people are really wrong. Dragon Age 2 was very incorrectly maligned when it came out for confusing reasons. A lot of it being the fact that in side quests, they recycle the same buildings a lot.
Yeah, that sucks.
And it's like, I don't know, man. Have you played an RPG before? Especially back then? Like, that was not an unusual thing.
They do it more.
I mean, people fucking praise Kingdoms of Amalur like it was a good game, and that game is way worse about recycling content than Dragon Age 2 ever was. Like,
100%.
So many games get by more easily with recycled content than while being mad at Dragon Age 2 for some reason.
But Dragon Age 2...
Literally every Elder Scrolls game. Don't act like any of those caves are unique. You've never been in a cave and been like, oh yeah, I've never seen this placement of stuff before.
Even just speaking about today's
topics like Deathloop. I've been in the same building a number of times that is not the same building, but also it's like the same place but different times. This whole place only has 4 levels kind of set up. And then like much worse, like Outer Worlds is full of the same building over and over again, like endlessly. Like it's still a thing today in games. So like that being a thing in Dragon Age was a weird problem. But I really appreciate the weird like 3-chapter story, and like the like these are just the ongoing problems of this town specifically, instead of being the usual thing where it's like, gotta kill the god dragon, it's ending the world.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Again?
I thought
the story of Dragon Age Inquisition's bad. And the gameplay is also fairly bad.
My problem with Dragon Age 2, in terms of the repetition, is that it just throws so much combat at you all of the time.
Yeah.
And there's no reward for combat. The loot is non-existent because it's not a loot-based game. And when you do get loot, most of it is junk, and the inventory only has like 90 slots. There's so much time spent backtracking trying to throw away stuff, and it's just like it's so unrewarding. And you can upgrade the inventory to 150 slots, but you have to buy the correct upgrades at the correct time, and if you don't, they're gone forever. And it happened to me a couple of times. But the thing is that there are a lot of missions in Dragon Age 2 that do not have dialogue at all. They're just like a little post-it note. You just go to a place, you kill a bunch of people or a bunch of monsters, and that's it. Quest complete.
Yeah,
and
it's like Mass Effect 1 Mako missions.
It is, yes. But at least you had the Mako. That was fun to drive around.
Opinions are split.
I honestly liked. I wish the 3 chapters were better connected. They could have connected the 3 chapters better in terms of storyline. But because it does feel like 3 different stories, and the third one is about the same length as the other ones, and it should have better set up. It should have been. Yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I got to blow up the whole place. So yay! Bring it all down. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just bummed out that they took. All these games need less in that trilogy, and Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda are incredibly long games, and it's because they are like, let's have an open world full of busy work. It's like, no, please, I want to go home. Just let me do the story. But it's like, almost to that game's benefit that it's so spread out that you forget the story, because the story just doesn't have that much going on and just isn't that interesting in an Inquisition.
Fallout 3.
The good narrative content is just getting attached to the characters and having their individual through lines that you get from talking to them enough that something happens eventually and so on. But like the actual main story is like wildly disappointing.
Wow. That's going to really suck when I cut out all the fluff in my Let's Play and just show it all there for the peeps to see. I honestly, Dragon Age 2 really benefited from my trimming in the Let's Play. It really came. I thought that's probably my favorite Let's Play of mine. Is it's just because it's tight. It's a really tight game. Once you cut out all the nonsense, and it's not that. That's not even that much
really
nonsense. There's a little bit.
You cut out the nonsense.
What does
that mean?
It means it's like the story is delivered in a well-paced manner. There's fights that are rewarding. There's exploration. There's even exploration in the repetitive levels that are recycled. That feels good. I thought Dragon Age 2 was better than Dragon Age Origins. 100%.
I mean, Dragon Age 2 has a lot going for it. It's not a bad game. It's very. It was very confusing, the feedback I got at the time. Not only because of the fact that I don't know, gaming discourse is weird.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, just like specific arguments just get popular that someone makes, and then it like repeats forever. And then
gamers, man,
and often without interrogating why that argument's being made sometimes. And it's not just it's just the internet discourse to some extent, just like the fact that like people hear somebody else say something and then they start repeating it forever on the loop. And so like there's a lot of like entire ideas that are often like a narrative that has to be like fixed by like a big video that changes the discourse about the thing. Cause like I was like almost like was it Matthew Matosis with Dark Souls 2, for example? Yeah. Like just like having a video that just like creates the narrative that this is why this thing is bad, and then everyone just kind of echoes the same points over and over again, and you're like, yeah, but do those things matter? And is that the thing that's bad? And it's like, specifically in Dragon Age, 2 was complained about for things that both its previous game did and that the next game would also do without getting the same like backlash for similar reasons. Like the third game, more than any of them, does not respect your time, but it's the second game that's known for that. It's really strange. But also we've like weirdly just kind of gotten like people just kind of like started liking that, like games that just take forever and waste your time and so on, like akin to like, you know, like this is our ongoing stuff with like Elden Ring discussion and like there's just like an ongoing thing where like games are just astonishingly padded and use repetitive content and are noticeably less coherent and tight experiences than the ones that came before them, even from the same company and style and series. But people are like, and that's the best one they ever did. So I don't really know what's going on where people are most of the time these days. Because the fact that it turned around and people were like, Inquisition's way better, despite being like way worse for a lot of the stuff that people were mad at the previous games for. Like, I don't know what to make of that, man. Get confused.
I look forward to seeing if I think it's better or worse. I honestly thought I when I started Dragon Age 2, I thought I was gonna like it worse than Dragon Age 1 because the combat is more streamlined, and I was like, oh yeah, this is just gonna be an action flick or something like that. And just starts so strong. Like it's unavoidable the style that BioWare can get onto their games of just being like, it's not like other people can't do what they do, but they just choose not to. BioWare just has charismatic characters. They just throw stuff at you without. They're not ashamed of doing it. They're just like, let's have this character.
They're not ashamed.
But it is though. It feels like a lot of companies are ashamed of having charismatic characters. Like an Alistair from Mass Effect. Oh, sorry, from Dragon Age Origins. That's not a character that you see very often.
Yeah.
In terms of like he's emotional, he's strong-willed, he grows, and like he's characterful. And I thought it was just silly and as a person, and honestly, I thought it was written to be childish, and you know, not that that's not I'm not taking the writing down for that. It's totally fine to write that, but it's still memorable, and he's like a highlight of the whole game. And in contrast, Morrigan, which is really well written as well, but she's just much more subdued and works well as a contrast. But the contrast is the point though, is like it's unavoidable to see that. There's certain things that happen to certain characters in BioWare games that doesn't happen anywhere else. And they're okay with that. Let's make this character be super out there. And I like that. The whole family in Dragon Age 2 was like that. The mother was like that. The sister, the brother, they're meaningful characters. I didn't like the brother. I was like, fuck you, whatever. I was like, oh, I don't like you anymore. Fuck off. I don't care. Like I was really, I didn't.
It's very interesting having a family.
But they're characterful people, though. It's not like real family that are. They're interesting people with like weird idiosyncrasies going on.
Like a real family. God damn. Just going for it today.
Yeah. I just
that game had a lot going for it. It's more interesting than people were willing to give it credit for, because like there's a particular narrative just took hold, and then that was just what that game was to everybody.
Sometimes that's deserved, and sometimes it's just kind of confusing. And I'm like, I don't understand how we ended up here.
It's also the second game where they sort of failed to recognize the apartheid state that the like the main kingdom lives in. They kind of do in the second game, but it's not strong enough to like modern day people should be absolutely outraged at how the elves are treated in the whatever the name of the kingdom, I don't remember. They should be absolute, just it's unacceptable. But we are never given any choice to even denote the bad things in the first game. They say, well, maybe we are here and there, but it's just like it should be center point. And even starting as an elf, which I did in the first game, you don't you're not really given a chance to reflect that. And there's this involved quest in the first game where you deal with the elves in a almost like you're trying to be, oh man, maybe the elves are nice, but nope, turns out they're all sick and werewolves or whatever. It's
They're
just
all
like
sick and werewolves.
I recall that quest in particular being like such a such a switch, bait and switch, being like, oh, maybe this is gonna be the point where like let's face the way the elves are treated, but nope, it isn't. It's we had to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I'm like racism is bad or what, but like I definitely came away thinking that it wasn't presented as a good thing or anything. That
no,
obvious racism in the Dragon Age setting. Like I think it's like it's very I think it's very intentionally meant to be not a good thing in the setting. It's just not necessarily a thing anyone is challenging.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's all that I mean. The thing is, you deal directly with the people responsible for this, for this racism. Like you deal directly with the kings and like with the rulers. You can't humanize them. They're the ones responsible for the situation. Or if they're not the ones that created it, they're not abolishing it or doing anything about it. So they're unredeemable on the face of it. Like and there's. It's like
they're trying their best.
It's like the whole thing of the good king, the story about the good king. There's no good king. They're king, bad. And like obviously I say that with modern day morals, or I say modern day, but with my morals, let's put it like that, applied to a setting where my morals wouldn't exist as easily or at all even. And so I'm
that
being
doesn't matter.
Suspicious in a way, right? But it's still jarring because
it's not their problem that they're doing bad things just because there isn't like a general consensus that the things they're doing is bad on Twitter. Like it just doesn't change that fact. Like just because that is what they did in the past doesn't make it okay that they did it in the past. It was just like, well, who's gonna stop me? It's like, okay.
And romanticizing those things and not broaching the morality of it in a modern day story is still it's moralizing those things in the other direction. You can't tell a story about this slave owner who had slaves and didn't think it was a bad thing actually was a very nice person and liked dogs. No, don't do that. No dogs for that person. And it's because you're telling the story. Tell the story without the dogs, and then it's just a slave owner, right? Because the choices we make in our storytelling are representative of how we see the stories that we're telling. And
well, I mean, I think that does at least add nuance. Like a person can be a human, no need to, and do well, yeah, but people do horrible things and are just regular people too.
For sure.
Like and so I think that's the point, is that like, yeah, you can humanize and empathize with this guy who does completely abhorrent stuff. Because again, he is just a guy making a really bad decision, but it's not that he's like he's not going around like trying to wipe out a town or whatever. He just
but that's what
he just personally doesn't
like the apartheid state is genocidal in Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age in particular.
Sure, I just mean that like there's a limit to like I think you can have characters that are being bad people, but
you can And The Witcher
Yeah,
3,
like,
for example, is a great example of that. I always look at a lot of the side quests in The Witcher 3 where terrible people are humanized in very interesting ways that are morally challenging. And like, you can, when I say morally challenging, I don't mean that I don't know how to act about it or that people don't know how to act about it. I mean that it forces us to make our own mind about complex situations. But what I'm saying is Dragon Age doesn't do that. It doesn't make it, oh, this is a terrible person that does, or rather, this is a nice person that does terrible things, or vice versa. Dragon Age doesn't broach those issues, I feel, a lot of the time. And the ones that they do it in ham-fisted ways. Specifically, the first game, there's a big thing about the first game about the way the wardens are created, and the way and basically the pact that they form when they become a warden. And it's just done. It's center point to the storytelling, but it's just done so ham-fisted in a ham-fisted way that I didn't connect to it at the time when I played it. And like I can't go back very easily because it's been a while. But I remember just being like, "You just killed that dude. Why would you kill that dude?" And anytime that character that killed the dude would talk and be like, "Oh, I'm morally superior," no, you killed that dude. He didn't do anything. And this is in relation, again, it's a relation to the creation of the wardens. The story goes, basically, spoilers for the very beginning of the Dragon Age Origins. Basically, the wardens are defendants of the lands against monsters that come from underground, and for them to become wardens, they have to drink the blood of those monsters. And by doing that, they basically mean that they will wither and die in like 30 years, which, let's not talk about how long that is or how little. Yeah, 30 years they die at most. And the fact that they drink the blood of the monsters is kept secret, which is silly, but whatever. It's kept secret. And they're like, nobody knows. And when the people accept or are recruited into being a warden, they don't know that they're going to be basically given a death sentence of 30 years. And what happens is the chief of the wardens basically tells this recruit, "Hey, you're here. Let's become a warden. You're gonna need to drink this blood, and you're gonna die in 30 years when you drink it. If you don't die earlier, because being a warden is very dangerous. But whatever." And the dude is like, "No, I don't want to do that." And the chief of the warden just kills the dude, stabs him.
It's a little worse than that. It's even worse than that, because what actually happens is you play the entire beginning of this game with a temporary party of 2 other soon-to-be Grey Wardens, and you get back from this mission, and then it's like, okay, time for initiation. You're all going to become Grey Wardens now, and then you get that reveal about how it works and all that. But like, you find out that like half of Grey Wardens die immediately. And
yeah, it's worse than that. Yeah.
So your other party member drinks it first and dies, and then the other guy's like, "I'm not doing that," and then gets killed, and then it's just you.
Yeah.
It's
like so much worse than I was remembering.
It's like, here you go. Now you get to drink it after both of your party members are dead, and you're all alone now.
But for me, from then on, that major character that later on Alistair is like, "Oh, that guy was really good," because Alistair apparently liked that chief of the wardens. That chief warden, for me, forever is just a bad person.
Yes.
Like, he might not be the worst person, he's a bad person. And like, none of what he says has any moral.
It's someone that does something awful, but it's entirely cloaked in the idea that like, but this is all not even good, tradition, so it's fine.
It's not even good.
I don't know, it seems like a pretty.
There's no reason for them to hide that from the public. Show. They should be able to.
The Witcher.
In The Witcher, yeah. Oh, The Witcher is a good. I think I even brought it up. I think I even brought it up when I was reacting to the whole thing live in my first Let's Play. The Witcher is a good example of what is going on. Like, people know that the people that become Witchers have, like, they become what's the word for baron for men?
They're sterile.
Sterile, yeah. They become sterile. They can die.
They got wiped down with Kleenexes.
Yeah, yeah. There's this whole thing. Like, people know more or less that becoming a Witcher is a pain in the ass. Like, and the wardens in the first game are specifically in a situation where they don't get a lot of recruits. which is I think is just meant for dramatic effect. There's no real intention behind the lore of that. But if that's the case, they should just say, we're here, we're so strong, we're gonna die for you. It's important. There's no reason for them to not tell that people need to drink the blood of the tainted or whatever. And but that's like an in-game argument. That's like an argument that I would make to a warden and be like, no, you dumb doofus. What I make outside of the game is the morality of that one character and the fact that the writers of the game made what is supposed to be a hero just be bad on the face of it, according to modern day morals, or my morals. Again, maybe not necessarily modern day. Because the thing is the way you tell the story. A lot of people, and me included, maybe if I uncritically played Dragon Age Origins, the way you tell the story, a lot of people will just look at that. Oh yeah, that was a good person, and that guy that said no was a betrayer. No, of course they can't tell this. Why would they? Because you just take it on face value, and that's it. But all those things just build up this distorted image of well, it's the way stories are told. It's always distorted, isn't it? It's always a perspective. But it's a bad perspective. No, that guy's bad. He stabbed the dude. And then Alistair is like, the twist at the end. I'm not going to get into Dragon Age Origins, but it's a good game and people should play it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't get on my nerves. The good games get on my nerves the most. So, yeah.
Because you actually think about them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was your first mistake.
I mean, there's a whole discussion to be had there about people like just following orders and so on, or just following tradition blindly. There's a lot going on with the fact that, like, yeah, you and Alistair just accept the murder of one of your peers because he turned on the idea of doing the ritual. And then you just continue forward and never talk about it again. It's like, hang on a fucking minute. Esco Elysium would have a fucking 30-minute talk about this moment.
You can't let someone betray you like that. Clearly he was a spy.
He was pretty sus.
Yeah, who would say no to becoming a warden?
Timely
Only a spy.
references.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of subtext that can be read into stuff like that. Things like toxic masculinity or sometimes like specifically in Dragon Age.
I like RPGs because they're often stories and settings that specifically reward the idea of just thinking about them more and asking more questions. So it's always good when the narrative does that. But there's a lot of stuff that's just uncritically just kind of thrown in there, like a weird mishmash of like tropes and recycled ideas from other things, and also like elements of Dragon Age that are just there to be edgy, like, oh, it's a dark ritual and everybody but you dies, and also everybody's just covered in blood this whole game, and there's a 30 seconds to Mars song, and I turn that off immediately, but that's the default way the game looks, is that you're covered in blood basically the entire playthrough. Because like you get in like one fight and now your entire party's covered in blood, and then they just like have conversations like that. It's really distracting. I can't handle it. And that's just like, yeah, like Dragon Age was supposed to be pretty edgy. It's supposed to be a dark, they spare, like I think I remember like this being ripped into a little bit by like the Zero Punctuation review at the time. It was the fact that like there was such an emphasis on the idea that Dragon Age was very specifically a dark fantasy game, and it's like it's a pretty regular fantasy game.
Yeah,
but like they wanted it to be dark and edgy, and that's why it's got the dumb song, and why it's like you're all covered in blood, and why. Yeah, like, oh, look, all these people who died, and here's a corpse dragon, and the enemy are zombies, and look how fucking horrifyingly muscular your dog is. Why does your dog look like that?
Burly boy.
He's kind of scary. Like, why is the Dragon Age dog is so much, and then you never get a dog again. I don't think you even see them again.
No, you see them in Mass Effect 2.
Dragon Age 2?
Yes, sorry, Dragon Age 2.
You see them in Mass Effect 2 when you shoot them.
Oof. And Dragon Age Origins even has another apartheid society, which is the dwarves. Again, there's no thoughts given to how terrible that they have the caste system for one, and that they also have the poor. Oh, they name it in such an. It's a terrible indictment on it, but they name it the first introduction to the lowest caste of the dwarves is, it's the outlaws. It's like three things, and it's the outlaws, the traders, and the poor, or something like that. And I'm just like, I'm okay, all right. So anybody that is in favor of this is terrible. It's just because basically it criminalizes being poor, on the face of the law, and the game then proceeds to give no thought whatsoever to how bad the caste system of the dwarves is. And it's like,
as
all
it
right,
should.
No, it should. It should give thought. I'm saying
No.
it doesn't. It doesn't give any thought. And the dwarves, like even the storyline is very, very yikesy. The whole thing about there's a lot of I get the impression that the game is trying to come across that the respect for tradition is the good thing out of that. There's some
which is
pretty yikes
never the
moments here.
case.
Yeah.
That is always the wrong answer in every narrative.
Yeah. But there's enough wiggle room there that well, whatever. The problem with reading subtext is that unless it's like repeated, it's kind of a leap of faith or lack thereof to read subtext into narratives like that. It needs to be like a consistent through line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something devouring and Is there some kind of reoccurring reinforcing theme throughout, say, like 2 seasons of an anime that somebody can talk about for too long?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, otherwise you're like just hoping and guessing that this is the point, and not just like a random incidental plot element that they didn't think about very much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's and like the definitely. You'll see when you finish Inquisition, but like they're definitely setting up the idea that the next game might have more to do with elves, just like how 2 sets up the idea that Inquisition is going to be about mages. Mm-hmm. They were kind of all about mages, but 2 very specifically ends with like, it's time for mages.
Yeah. That's right. Another thing as well. I think that is better handled, the whole mage situation. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because it's an ongoing conversation from the first game into the second one, and Anders is up to some shit.
I think the thematic sort of.
I need to play that game again, which I will at some point. Like, because I need to cover the first 2 games at some point, I'm sure. But I'm wondering if it'll turn around again. I got at the time, it was often seen as like a character assassination of Anders. What happens in that Dragon Age 2?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and now, but now
he's like the most badass person of the whole game.
I was gonna say all these years later, being and being a leftist and so on, I'm like, I don't know. I think my boyfriend doing the thing might be cool, actually. When I see it now, because I might be completely on his side and not actually have that many complicated opinions about it. Whereas like, at the time, and this feeds back into your previous discussion about like not questioning authority and just doing what you're told, and also like propaganda and so on in Mass Effect and Dragon Age and so on. Like, it's very much supposed to be understood, or at least like very much like the response at the time was the idea that like Anders is absolutely in the wrong and he went too far. He's the villain of every Marvel, all the Marvel movies where they're like, the Marvel guy, the villain has a point, but he went too far, that they kept doing in the more recent movies. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll have that opinion this time. I might just be like, I don't know.
I like object without.
I might just be like, Anders, marry me harder.
Yeah. Wow. Removing my bias. That's not the story of Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2 goes to great lengths to show that the Inquisitors, or whatever they're called, are corrupt. They're systematically corrupt, and they're genocidal. It never shows the mages being evil, or not evil, but they do show the mages being evil. But not what I mean is it never shows the mages being more powerful than other people. And like, and it's the same thing with the Krogan in Mass Effect, but we can isolate it to Dragon Age. Basically, they say, oh, the mages are really powerful, and they are, and they can be really powerful, but they also show everybody else being really powerful, specifically the Inquisitors, and the Inquisitors are very powerful as well. I was paying attention from the beginning of the Dragon Age 2 to see the game at least telling the story of the mages being powerful. Because if you're going to tell a story like in the original Dragon Age and Dragon Age Origins, or the mages being powerful, you do what they did, which is, they set up the whole story of the mages, and it's like demons, and this, like, they really convey the point of the mages being dangerous in the Dragon Age 1, where I think Dragon Age 1 makes the point of the mages being dangerous. In Dragon Age 2, that doesn't happen. Like, maybe, and it could be like in the lore of the world, you can have the understanding that it's an omission of the story. Like, Dragon Age 2 is not telling the whole story, but the point of the story of Dragon Age 2 is to show that the mages are prosecuted unfairly. It happens time and time again that they're like,
it's the reason why I consider the mage intro to be like the important one to play out of all of them in Dragon Age Origins, is because you specifically have a friend that is made tranquil at the beginning of the playthrough.
Yeah.
And that character shows up again later, but you know who they are if you actually were there at the time. So you very specifically lose somebody to that system. And so like that recontextualizes the entire playthrough in a significant way. And it's like, sure, like the point of all the different Dragon Age Origins intros is they're supposed to all like recontextualize the entire playthrough a bit, because that's the particular chunk of the culture that you have a specific background with. But it's pretty clear that the one you really should play is Mage, not only because that's the most interesting and weird intro, but because it's the plot of the trilogy. And the dwarves sure aren't. Like the dwarves just exist. So it's like, wow, I sure have perspective about this one city I'll visit later. But like, it's not a through line for the story.
They were supposed to be more of an important thing, but they changed they changed the story.
They went so heavy on the mages. But no, like freaking Anders is a very big change of pace from Mass Effect, where my boyfriend is a cop. And not just a cop, but like Batman, like an extrajudicial cop, and it's like,
yes, very much so.
It's real rough that Garrus is like my favorite, like basically my favorite BioWare character, because he's got some shit to unpack that's not great.
In the first and in the second.
Yep, he straight up becomes Batman in the second game.
Like, I mean,
all right,
it's
well,
okay. I think my first favorite character in Mass Effect was Ashley. And then it was like, oh
no, she's pretty nice.
Oh no, this is not.
But then again, all of
them
like
are. going. But that's not true.
Ashley correctly predicts the plot of Mass Effect. Everyone hates her, but she's just saying
you can't trust
the plot
aliens.
Of Mass Effect
They're
is.
bad. Like,
I'm just saying, finish the Mass Effect trilogy, then go back and have the infamous conversation with Ashley, and just realize she's just explaining the plot of the trilogy to you.
Maybe somebody was like, you know what? Ashley was right. I'm going to write the whole damn story like she was.
Oh no, Mass Effect is actually saying that no, the racists are right. But again, as I was saying before,
like if you want to be technical, it is just a story about how somebody hates somebody enough to make things worse for everybody. Like it is weird that like every single avenue you take in Mass Effect is just racism somewhere. It's like, well, I guess we can't just assume that they're gonna go after one of their own, right? Because it's just what a human said. Well, I hope this doesn't turn out bad. Oh no, he's destroying the Citadel now.
Have we talked on the podcast about that time that Dragon Age 2 outed me as gay, and I just quietly swept that under the rug for a decade?
We have not.
I mean,
Andrew was there.
I knew. It wasn't subtle. Yeah, it is very obvious that like every time you play BioWare games, you only had male partners
until I was recording it. This is
but it was
this is canon, it stayed true through, because this is I kept this, but yeah, it was fucking Anders. Was it? We went in and we played Dragon Age 2's DLC that had Felicia Day in it.
because I'd already
Yeah,
played the actual game itself. So we just played the DLC as a standalone little playthrough. And
yeah,
fucking,
but it wasn't on the channel, so it's just the DLC.
yeah, it was just, and then just unpredictably, in a way that I had not thought ahead on, in the middle of this playthrough, fucking Anders just walks in and he's like, "Hello, husband," basically, like just
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
And there was a reaction in the room at the time, and I just kind of like rushed past that moment and continued on. But like, I'm like, oh right, this is a dangerous playthrough to play on camera, but it's still on camera. Like those videos are still up from like 20.
That
like,
was from
12 or something.
2011.
It might be 2011. That's when the game came out. It was
Yeah.
2011.
You were 20 years old.
21. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
21,
one eternity ago.
You're old, man.
It's and I was just like, oh, we're gonna get past this, but yeah, because yeah, I did definitely. Was it Mass Effect 1 was either Caden or Liara. Mass Effect 2 and 3 is Garrus. Dragon Age 2 is definitely Anders. And it's like,
I think
this is fucking awkward. There was the whole thing where it's like I had to pick a beard in Dragon Age Inquisition. It's like, Josephine will do fine because Sarah's a lesbian. So I guess it's you and me, Josephine, because we're gonna have conversations if I go after Iron Bull on camera.
Good for you.
This is some goofy fucking bullshit. There's a lot of instances like that over the years where I'm just like, don't focus on this too hard. But I did keep it. I kept it, and when I filled in my backstory for Dragon Age Inquisition, Hawk was gay with Anders, so he just kind of walks in with his and like Hawk just walks in for a bit, and he just offhand references being with Anders. It's like essentially like, oh, how's the kid? It's like how's the boy back at home? It's like just a fucking offhand thing, but like. It's just amusing to have that through line, because yeah, they really wanted, because it's a selling point of Mass Effect, they really wanted your choices to matter in Dragon Age Inquisition from the last two games. So you can import your save, or you can play this really detailed questionnaire where you explain what happened in the last two games, and they will pay lip service to all of them, up to and including like you can import the appearance of Hawk, and he can show up in person at some point for like a moment, and you're like, wow, look at him, it's Hawk. It's very funny.
I'm like quickly rewatching the Dragon Age 2 DLC that we played, and I forgot there's a point where there was like some guy that we needed a key from or something, and you have your character because he's already canonically in that playthrough gay. You have him kiss one of the guys to steal something out of his pocket.
I don't remember.
Everyone in the room is like, oh my god, but what about Anders? We're all concerned that you're cheating on your husband.
I do not remember that at all. I just remember the part where I was horrified for a minute, and then I remember a fucking like Momokuri style. Oh yeah, we used to call it Momokuri puzzles, but we now know they're called Lights Out. But it's a fucking Lights Out puzzle on the floor that we took so long to solve. So you had to like fast forward or skip through it eventually.
Dragon Age 2?
Yeah.
I got
Dragon
so
Age 2,
lucky on
Mark
that.
of the Assassin.
The Mark of the Assassin DLC has
yeah.
a puzzle where there's like a picture of like a dude
Oh,
on
no,
the
Mark of the
floor or
Assassin, I haven't
something.
played that. Yeah.
You didn't play the DLCs?
I played the other one. Because the DLCs for Electronic Arts games are Satan, and it's the worst thing in the entirety. Like Mass Effect 2, for example, you cannot get any DLCs if you have the Steam version. So I'm just like, guess I'm not playing any. That's it. That's it.
I did very specifically play the like Xbox Classic emulated version on my Xbox One, because I very specifically was like, this is the platform where I own all of these DLCs, and they're like impossible to get on other platforms at this point.
Yeah. My problem
and
with
that's
the
even
Dragon
when
Age
you get
DLCs
past how much of a Mass Effect 2 was with like Cerberus Network, because that was back
nightmare.
when every EA game had an online pass. And
Mhm.
so in order to get the rest of the game, in many cases you had to buy a new copy of the game that came with a whatever the code was for the online pass, and then you had to redeem that. Otherwise you got like a weird shitty incomplete version of the game with some major thing that was missing, and they want you to pay $10 to get that back, essentially. And so like in Mass Effect 2 it was Cerberus Network, which was how you got the quote unquote free Zaid DLC, which is how that entire character is in the game. And then there was
I've
like
never seen that character. I have no idea what that is. I'm totally fine with this reality.
It's an entire companion character you just don't have because of that.
Totally fine.
Yeah. And then there's like the Firewalker DLC, which is like it's like the new Super Mako. Like they very clearly tried to develop a Mako for Mass Effect 2.
It shows up in the game a bunch of times. The Super Mako.
Do you actually use it though? I forget.
No.
Yeah.
I saw it the second time I saw it, I was like, oh, we're gonna drive it now, and then it didn't.
Yeah, they very clearly, as far as I can tell, they like developed a new Mako to address the concerns of the previous Mako, but then they like just didn't finish it, or they cut it, and then they just finished. They just made a shitty little mission pack for it later that's largely divorced of any context, and they put it out in Cerberus Network, and it's just dumb, because it's just it's just not Mass Effect, and it's not even and because it's a weird free throwaway DLC as part of the online pass. It's also like not attached to anything, so it's also not like a reoccurring mini game that you do as part of the overall experience, like with the original Mako. And it's instead just like a weird mission pack where you play a different video game for half an hour for some reason. It's just a bad idea. Zaid's significant, and it's also annoying that like getting Zaid from Cerberus Network is the only way to have Zaid in Mass Effect 3 also, because the characters that are alive all return in some way or other. And so like he's just not going to be there either, because you couldn't deal with Mass Effect 2's DLC. Do you have Kasumi?
I just
you don't have Kasumi either, right?
Steam. They don't exist on Steam, basically.
Oh, you don't have Kasumi. People like Kasumi.
Yeah,
you miss out on a lot of stuff if you never interacted with the Cerberus Network. It just like
you had to pay like $15 for
release,
Kasumi, but Kasumi was a thief character that you recruit. And
if
like,
you play the game on release, you also don't do that. That's just terrible. And for me, the problem with Dragon Age
it's
2
awkward because you have to like load up your save and go play the Kasumi mission now and just pretend she was there all along.
Yeah, for Dragon Age 2 for me is I started out on Steam, and somebody told me, "Oh, there's a bunch of DLCs that you probably want." And I was like, okay, I'll get the EA version with all the DLCs that costs a lot of more money, but that's fine, whatever. And then I imported my save.
So you haven't played Overlord?
When I finished, I don't know, maybe.
Dragon Age 2 had so much fucking DLC.
I finished Dragon Age 2, and then I went and looked at DLCs, and I realized all of them are midway through the game. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, now you tell me. Okay, well, some of them are not, and I played the one that is not just a combat fest, and that is interesting. Actually, I liked it. It was the one with the like in an ancient society or ancient ruins. It was pretty cool.
Is it the Corypheus one?
Yes.
That's it's good you played that.
Yeah, that one is. That's pretty good.
That is
plot,
that is the I'm setting up Dragon Age 3 DLC.
Yeah, I don't know Overlord. I have no idea what that is.
Overlord is strange. It's one where I keep questioning it because I don't know what's up, but I think at the time it was criticized for being an iffy presentation of somebody with autism or something, but I can't remember for sure, and I don't really know what was going on. But there was essentially as like a dude hooked up to a computer that's like lashing out through this entire facility, and he can't be free and so on. But also Arrival, the Arrival DLC for Mass Effect 2, you might want to look into, if at least watch what it is or something. It's a really bad DLC, and I hate it. But
Damn.
also, Mass Effect 3 opens on the consequences of that DLC. So if you
Oh.
haven't played it, you're very confused because, like, Mass Effect 3 literally opens on, like, a trial for Shepard because of what happened in the Arrival DLC. And it's like, it just
okay.
opens there like you played it. It's just confusing.
I will remember that when I start Mass Effect 3.
But I have like 500 plot complaints about the Arrival DLC, up to and including the fact that it like unlocks. Not only do you play it in Mass Effect 2, I think it unlocks in the first half of Mass Effect 2. So it's like a bizarrely major event happens weirdly early in Mass Effect 2 based on when you play that DLC. And then you just go back to playing Mass Effect 2. And it's just very weird. It definitely feels like something that should have happened after Mass Effect 2, but that is not when it opens up as a thing you can do. It's weird.
Sometimes you don't get a choice, I guess. I always wonder what the process is to add DLC to RPG games like that. Because like we were talking about with Outer Worlds, it's like they just show up in the middle. But how do you decide what is the middle or like what is a good entry point for certain DLC, especially when some of it almost feels like it can be a little jarring. And
As
then just go back.
As a
and
rule, I
no
don't
one
like.
acknowledges it.
I basically don't like DLC in RPGs as a concept.
That makes sense. I can.
Well, though.
And part of
I
it's
can
the
see that.
implementation. Part of it is the fact that like it's better if there's like one giant expansion where here's a whole new continent to go explore and you get a hook into it at some point to find out about like the Shivering Isles or whatever. But like BioWare DLC or a lot of other games DLCs or like Kingdoms of Amalur and so on, like there's two things that can happen here. One, you play the game first, then DLC comes out. That's awkward. Now you gotta like figure out how to even get to the DLC. Like it was a bummer. Like even as cool as it was frustrating trying to figure out how to get to the Disco Elysium update content because you have to like plant a seed days ago, then go through days of like the timeline to then trigger the event to just do the deal. Like doing it as an isolated event is really awkward. And like
I'm still haven't seen that.
Yeah,
it's rough to like make it work if you try to do it in an old file as opposed to just playing the game again.
Yeah, I'm doing a new game.
Yeah,
but I don't know what I'm looking for, so hopefully I'll find it.
Good luck.
I found the cops for the pigs, rather. I found the pigs. I didn't find it in my first playthrough. Such a wild character.
There's some shit going on.
I,
but the like what's frustrating is the way that a lot of DLC is implemented into RPGs is that you often finish the tutorial and then they just yell at you about all the DLCs you have. Like just a weird pop-up comes up that just explains every DLC you have for that game all at once or something. And they'll get plopped in there. They have to put like a weird special marker on the DLC, like quest to make it look different. And so it's just like glaring at you the entire playthrough, this like very abundantly not part of the original game thing. So it's like either you have to go back to an old save and try to figure out the trigger for this one awkward thing and then pretend it was part of a larger playthrough, or you play it when the DLC is already out and you just have this bizarre modular, very obviously not part of the rest of the package piece of content that's just glaring at you all playthrough and is just very strangely implemented. Like in a lot of cases you play a game like Kingdoms of Amalur and the DLC is just magically in your quest log like the moment you get out of the tutorial, and then it's just staring at you the whole time. I feel like Dragon Age 2, Mass Effect 2, despite how fucky the DLC situation was outside of the game itself, might have done one of the better solutions for it in the game itself. And that's partly because Mass Effect 2 is a game about recruiting a bunch of separate people for a big suicide mission. So they don't necessarily... There's not a very coherent... Like, Mass Effect 2 does not have a plot for most of the game.
It really is.
It is just the story of all these individual characters. So you can just add more characters. And then... So, like, in Mass Effect 2, Kasumi and Zaid are introduced the same way that, like, Garrus is. Like,
and that's why I don't feel they're
Yeah, like you don't feel their absence either, right? But like you
Yeah,
just get
yeah,
a dossier about a character and you investigate them and you go recruit them and they slot in just like everybody else. The other DLCs that are not characters and which like like those characters work like the other ones. Like here's their intro mission, then you can talk to them on in your ship throughout the game, and then there's the loyalty mission later in the game. The ones that aren't companions are just fucking that one guy with the extreme vocal fry calls you on his thing at some point in the game. He's like, "We got a mission for you, Shepard. The moon's gone crazy," and like they also just kind of show up organically the way that any other like main story mission might show up. But like other games, most games do it much worse, and like the DLC missions usually very distracting and awkward. I remember to some extent, like even like Dark Souls 2, you buy the DLCs and they just like plop weird shit in your inventory and just tell you about the DLC in some weird way. And then like Scholar of the First Sin is like, hey, let's take this DLC that's just built in now and you definitely own it. And it will like organically put the triggers for how to get there throughout the story and try to make it coherent and not a weird, like separate, segregated slice of pie. But it's frustrating because you often are like, I just want to. Is it safe to play the game yet? And RPGs are really bad about being safe to play yet because they constantly are like, and then DLC happened, and then the director's cut happened. You're like, I just want to get the game. I just want to experience the version of the game that everyone's going to be talking about later, and I don't want to play it twice.
But they make it so difficult to experience that. Like I do that with the Witcher games. I wait. I did that with not with the Witcher one, but I did that with 2 and 3. I waited for the enhanced edition and I played them all, and it was fine. It was easy. Mass Effect, I've waited so long, and Dragon Age, and they make it so difficult.
And now all of it's gone, and now you can't play it. Fuck you.
I'm fine, whatever.
Man, you're not going to play the Citadel DLC, are you?
Probably not. What is it? No, wait. Which isn't that for the Dragon Age 3?
Yeah, Mass Effect 3.
I have Dragon Age 3 on the EA Origin thing or whatever it's called this week.
You're gonna have the Mass Effect 3 DLC.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because
that
DLC was so big it broke the rules for Xbox 360 DLC, and so you had to download 2 DLCs. There was the Citadel DLC Part 1, which you paid for, and then the Citadel DLC Part 2, which was free. Because you had to finish downloading it as a separate download because it was so big that you couldn't have it as one download back then. And like, by modern standards, it's probably small, but like back then, the Citadel DLC was such a big DLC that you couldn't have DLCs that big back then on a console.
That's the proper end of the game, isn't it?
It's not. No.
Okay, no spoil. It's fine.
Yeah. It's not the ending of the game because it doesn't take place at the end.
Oh,
but it is a celebration of the Mass Effect trilogy, basically. So it is like, it is a farewell to the trilogy that's full of fan service that was made after the series was over. And so it is, in many ways, it feels like the ending of the trilogy, especially since how many people experienced it. But you have to play it before the ending. Some people even talk about like the correct way of playing Mass Effect 3 is to play the whole story, and you play all the other DLCs. But then you beat the story, and then you play the Citadel DLC as like a weird like spin-off final hurrah like celebration
what
thing.
I might do. Yeah.
It's a very enjoyable DLC, directly amplified by how much you like the characters. Because the more you like the squad members of the trilogy, the more that DLC specifically pays off, because it's just about having as much of the squad as possible across the entire trilogy.
I really like Miranda and Jack and Liara. No, wait. Liara is the no, not Liara. Tali.
Tali's great.
Tali's great.
Yeah, this one.
Thane. I really liked Thane, even though he had the most infuriating audio effect whenever he was doing that flashback thing. And that's it. Those are the characters that I like.
Fuck everybody else. Die, Liara.
Basically, yes.
Damn.
You don't like Garrus at all?
Well,
you
Liara is.
can't look
I don't
past
like
him
Liara's
being a
boring.
giant cop.
Yeah, he's just such a cop that it's impossible to like him.
Listen, I was young. I
remember,
was 16. It was a different time.
I'm not shaming. I'm not shaming.
I remember, wasn't it? I think it was like, was it? I think it was Liara's scene that was the one that made all the TV rounds.
Yeah, it's such a tame scene. It's basically see half an
Yeah,
ass.
the Fox News sex box segment
Yeah.
where poor Jeff Keighley is just being shouted over by two women that never played the game.
Sex box.
It
What
was
a
called,
great name.
yeah, they call it the sex box, and they're talking about like this. They talk about like it's explicit porn targeted at children when it's both not explicit and also it's an M-rated game. Like everything was wrong about the entire narrative, and they had an expert that they brought in from the field who could talk about it very clearly, and they just shame him and shout over him the whole time. And the person that they bring in as the counter expert, who also hasn't played the game, is just some lady. She has no connection to the industry at all.
Yeah.
Has never played the game. People responded by review bombing her book into oblivion, which she was there to promote. And it's like,
Talk about cancel culture.
yeah, it's a very
They're trying to
frustrating
cancel the game
segment to
and
watch.
They canceled their book.
It was just how I knew early on that like media, like news is bad, but also Fox News in particular is just especially just like they clearly do not have any standard. This is not journalism. They have no ethics. Like this was like so embarrassingly just false. And
For me,
that was half my life ago now. Fuck.
for me, the
Wake
big
me up.
just you wait until you're 35. The
Nobody
for me,
likes
the
you when
big-
you're 35.
the big sort of takeaway, not from that, because I wasn't really exposed to that. I heard it like on the internet and be like, oh, some people are freaking out, whatever. But the real takeaway, especially modern day, we see that a lot, is that the extreme polarization of media, or no, I say media, but that's not the correct term because video games are media. The extreme polarization of serialized semi-newscasts is this just rots people's brains. People are just engulfed in this sort of whatever war is going on, and you see that with trans rights these days, and with whenever there's a shooting that is bigger than the normal shooting that happens every day in the U.S. that with gun rights, and you see with I mean, it happens even with the war in Ukraine, and like people are just they feed on that sort of whatever war is going on in Twitter or whatever, and that's their whole life. That's all they talk about for a little while, and then they move on to whatever happens next. And it's bizarre sometimes if you meet somebody that you haven't talked to in a while and just see whatever brain rot they're on this week or this month or whatever. And
Speaking
a
of
lot
brain
it is,
rot, I'm famous.
You're famous?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm being a bad listener. I didn't listen to anything you just said because I just realized that
Jesus.
it was just I got very distracted because somebody just shared with me the fact that I'm apparently on like the front page of r/shitty Dark Souls. And
Nice.
it says
What?
when you really want to have a special and unique opinion, and it's just a screenshot. Funnily enough, they did censor my username, but you can see Marrow in the. I'll just post this so you guys can see it too. You can see Marrow in the. It's very clearly me, but it's just my ranking of the Soul series. it's got 1.1 thousand likes, or it's like way up there in score right now. Like people are having there's 206 comments in this screenshot. People are discoursing me. I haven't even seen the thread.
Wait a second.
I'm just very
Are you-
amused to
did you-
see this.
Did you downvote this? Why would you downvote this? This
I
is
didn't
clearly...
download it. It's not my screenshot.
No, the person who took the screenshot. There.
Oh, yeah. What the hell? Tell them to up it. What are they talking
just-
about?
it's
It isn't
just-
perfect publicity for you.
I
didn't
mean, it's
rank-
not publicity because no one knows who it is. I have not. My Twitter has not been blowing up
Exactly.
over this. It's censored. But knowing, like, I very clearly know who that is. It's like it's very clearly that avatar. But yeah, for those that miss it, when I post it in the community tab or on Twitter, my ranking of the Souls series, which, like, I don't know, the idea of ranking an entire franchise is goofy anyway, so it's like, whatever. These will change every time I try to post this list, because, like, they're long games, so by the time you play the trilogy, by the time you play these 7 games, like, it's been 3 years again since the first one in that series that you played. Like, you can't quickly loop through this franchise like it's a series of movies. But my ranking is number 7, Dark Souls. Number 6, Elden Ring. 5, Sekiro. 4, Dark Souls 3. 3, Demon Souls. 2, Bloodborne. And 1, Dark Souls 2.
You
And
didn't
I'm
rank Scholar of the First Sin.
Yeah, that's excessive.
It should be number 0.
Number 0. No, Scholar of the First Sin. It's cool that it does very interesting things, like the weird use of the like turning the statues into a mechanic that actually is common instead of happening twice, and incorporating the DLCs more reasonably into the game. But it is very much just a special difficulty third playthrough of Dark Souls 3 after you've played the main game and the New Game Plus versions of the original game. You get 2 more New Game Plus versions, but like it's very much worse. It's not hugely worse, but it's not better than Dark Souls 2.
It's the only version of Dark Souls 2 that I played, and I love it. Apart from the DLCs.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird that you played that first. Yeah, it's the whole...
Not first, the only one.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's their fault. They did it that way, and it's bad that they did that.
It was also on sale. So I was like, oh, I'm going to grab Dark Souls 2.
It's bad that it's sold as a standalone thing, and it's bad that it's like it feels like a Game of the Year edition, like it's the correct, and it kind of is because it has all the DLCs. But the whole point of most of that campaign is to be a response to the original campaign. So it's supposed to be a bunch of surprises that are brought on by you knowing what the game was already like. And I had that experience, and it was very cool. But not having that context is very weird. But here's the worst part, Colonel. You're bringing back my comments section from 2014 or 15 or whatever that was so frustrating.
The dreaded years.
Is that like so Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One was Dark Souls 2, but with all the DLC included and this new remixed crazy campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also PC and so on. Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 is a Game of the Year edition. It's the original campaign with all the DLCs included. It's just those products again.
Wow.
It is not the new campaign. They're called the same thing.
Oh no. The wiki
it's
page
so
ladies and
fucking
gentlemen.
weird.
That is what we call marketing.
They called 2 different products the same thing based on what platform you got them on. So if you bought the last gen versions, people were all confused because they're looking up a playthrough of it, and my playthrough my game didn't look like their game, and it's because it wasn't the same game, because they just had theirs was just a Game of the Year edition. It was just a DLC bundle with no changes. It was baffling and infuriating.
I'm going through the wiki page. The Wikipedia page doesn't say that. It says only thing is on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. This also features remastered visuals and more advanced lighting effects. Runs at 1080p 60 frames per second. It doesn't mention anything about the gameplay. I'm not doubting you. It's just that I'm sure a lot of people don't know that, which is what you're referring to about the comments, right?
Womp womp womp.
Yeah. I think Dark Souls is better than Elden Ring.
Wow. That's going to land you on the top of r/shitty Dark Souls.
Elden Ring is the worst Dark Souls.
I'm just glad that Keith at least had enough sense to put Sekiro at 5. Like it belongs in the top 5 at least.
Out of only 7, like what is the meaning of that? I think they're all good games, so it's like getting mad at this list is
no,
goofy.
that's not enough. No.
Oh yeah,
it needs
sure.
Sekiro belongs at the top. It is the only good.
Sekiro very specifically has to be
Souls
higher than Elden Ring because it's coherent, and Elden Ring is a mess. Sekiro is a very singular, well put together thing that I don't like.
Wow.
Whereas the Elden Ring is the opposite. No, wait, do you maybe?
I like all these games. It's just the lower you get, the more kind of frustrating things get. Elden Ring is just a frustrating product that's just full of a lot of things to complain about. And Dark Souls 1 is just not as good as its legacy implies.
But it's all right to be bad. You have played the Banjo-Kazooie game recently, and you know that it's all right to be bad.
There was even very specifically a time period where Dark Souls 1 was known as like a step down from Demon Souls, and like it was worse. But that was just for people who played Demon Souls, whereas like Dark Souls 1 exploded in popularity to a different like degree of magnitude. And so all the newcomers became the actual narrative that dominated
because
things.
The castles are cooler.
But in the opening bit there, it was known as a worse sequel to Demon Souls for a bit until all the people that never played Demon Souls came in as the word spread about it.
You also typed it wrong. It's Demon's Souls.
Demands.
No, did you type it right?
Yeah, I typed it right.
I never know.
Yeah, he typed it right. That is how you spell it.
There's
it is
apostrophe
Demon
S.
Souls.
Yes.
My pedantry is foiled once again.
Yeah, no, that's it's an age-old complaint about it is how goofy it is to try to have to say Demon's Souls out loud because
English
you have
is not perfect.
That's why I always end up saying Demon Souls, because who the fuck is going to pronounce that game name correctly? It's so frustrating that it's called Demon's Souls. You have to have a distinct pause in order to actually say it. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're saying Demon Souls. It's impossible. Anyway, we're over 3 hours in. Holy shit, we gotta go. I'm famous on Reddit.
Oh my God.
I can quit the internet now, because obviously that's a monetizable thing. They finally reached my normal opinions. I wonder how many of the comments react to the furry avatar. Because that's the only thing. That's the only identifiable thing about me.
I hope they say nice things.
I imagine they treat it the same way as they do anime avatars, which is like complete and total disgust. Like, oh my god, I can't believe it's another person with an X avatar on the internet making opinions. Yeah, but you can easily dismiss people based on their avatar. It's really convenient.
Yeah, if it's an hexagon shaped avatar.
Yeah, even the anime community dismisses other anime avatar people based on what the anime character is.
The top comment is a joke list, and then the next thread after that is, if you listen to someone with a furry profile pic, then you've already lost.
Yeah. and what's their profile pic?
It's a horse.
Yeah.
There you go. It's that. At least we can't. It's not a case of glass houses then. No, wait.
What? Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. If you have a horse as an avatar, it's all right. Right? Are we shaming people with the horses as avatar?
That's a furry avatar. The person's also a furry.
Oh, wait a minute.
So don't listen to them.
When
They're
you said a horse, I imagined like a photo of a horse, not a picture.
Like a photorealistic horse is like,
yeah, you know.
Oh, I don't know.
There you go.
I'd have to see the thread. I imagine doesn't matter. It's Reddit. You don't. Your first mistake was for listening to a Redditor. See, look how easy that was. You can just ignore an entire website. Well, congratulations, Keith. Hopefully, your newfound virality, vitrally, will serve you well in the future.
Oh my god, there's so much discourse. I'm gonna be busy all day.
Stop reading the discourse.
No, I'm gonna be busy all day with this brain poison.
Oh no!
I think
don't
you
read
should start
Reddit, it's
replying back.
worse.
I think you need to update. So make sure you
No.
update your Reddit avatar to be that same one from Twitter, and then reply to people, but only reply with the list.
I like this fucking comment. If he's passing it as an opinion, that's all right. I myself have Dark Souls 2 more on the top, with Dark Souls 1 more on the low. But as a fact, fuck no. What does that comment even mean?
What? Yeah. What is the difference?
What does that even?
So
I hate this fucking endless discourse about like objectivity versus subjectivity, and it's like. And like that, your opinion is different. Like he agrees with me that Dark Souls 2 is good and Dark Souls 1 is flawed, but how dare I try to pass it off as fact instead of opinion or something? I'm like,
that's the ultimate having your cake and eating it too.
What do those words even mean? What a
Your opinion
non-comment.
is that it is a fact. I mean, because it's a fact that you like things because it's an opinion that is a fact. It's a fact.
I thought
opinion is what I'm saying.
I thought it was mostly aware that the whole goal here is that as you make sequels, they are supposed to be better than the first as you get comfortable with your mechanics. And
no, but they want to make different mechanics and have a horse.
I know, but I'm saying, and then like, but From Software notoriously keeps trying to be like, well, we did a good thing, let's do it again, but add one bad thing, and seems to be like the.
No, they didn't do that in Dark Souls 2.
Elden Ring is
they
like
just did better
Elden
things.
Ring.
Dark Souls 2 is wholly better than Dark Souls 1.
Is it?
Including the DLCs that I hate a lot.
I like the DLCs a lot, except for the.
I like some of them.
I just don't like. I hate the third boss of every DLC.
Yes.
I don't know what they were doing, but they made a bad boss in every DLC that's at the end of a horrible zone. That's like. I think at the time the narrative was that it was supposed to be a mandatory co-op zone, and so it was like a horrifying enemy gauntlet that you were meant to summon for, and then there was like a iffy boss at the end of each time, like the blue smelter demon or Reindeer Land ending in the 2 tigers.
I never found the 2 tigers. I was like, oh, that's it for this area.
That reindeer area is so nightmarish that it's genuinely hard to even consistently find the tigers, but you will die so many times against the fucking tigers because there's 2 of them that you'll start getting familiar with how to navigate Reindeer Land. That zone is insane. It hurts.
I know. I saw you suffer.
Every game has a pain part, and that one was that one's by far.
They had the goal to bring something similar back in Elden Ring. It's like they're taunting you, and that area is kind of pens as well, and it's just and then they have the whole the whole thing.
And then hopefully next time we can get in depth about it.
We still have some hours to go. We can make this a 5-hour.
We do not
podcast.
have hours.
We've done 5-hour podcasts.
No. We have not, but also...
And we split it in half. I don't remember.
No.
Keith, do you remember this?
I'm very distracted.
Yes, he is reading discourse now. We need to wrap it up. He's not here.
I appreciate this one.
Send your questions.
Furry bad, but list pretty accurate. He had to admit I was basically right. Despite being like furry bad. Like, I win. I won.
Damn.
Everyone send your questions to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com. It's spelled like the podcast name is, not like the other way you can spell dialogue, because there's 2 ways to spell dialogue. Don't fuck it up. Don't know who gets those other emails.
Freaking Jeff.
And we can spend 2 hours almost answering your questions. This is too long of an episode. Oh my god, it's almost 3.5 hours long. Go to bed, everybody.
Stop reading Reddit.
Everybody go to bed. All right. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
I'm Reddit famous.